got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. I got killer beats, got war and peace inside my DNA. I got poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA.
Hello and welcome back to FanFIC Fantasy. Today, we're kicking off part 1 of What If Ash Returned with Legendaries at His Side and a Harem to Protect? By the Lost Brother Grimm from fanfiction.net. Before Ash Ketchum could become a legend, he had to lose everything first. After returning from the Kalos League, Ash is betrayed by everyone he trusted, even his own mother. Left for dead in a forest, he is found by the Legendary Pokémon. But instead of letting him die, they give him a new life, a new family, and a chance to become something far greater. This is Master to Legend. So sit back, relax, and let's begin. Chapter 1. Going to Alola. I had to run. Everyone left me, all my friends. They stole my Pokémon and wouldn't give them back. They were my true family, not the women that I used to call mom. If you can hear me, my friends, I will be back to save you. I am just too weak to do so now. Arceus, if you can hear me, protect them from harm, return them to me please. I then felt my body go tired and collapse to the ground. The last sound I hear is an owl-like cry as I black out from exhaustion. Flashback mode on. Ash, sit down, we need to talk. Brock says to me as I walk into my living room. All my friends and rivals are there. I had just returned from the Kalos League after losing to Alan and his Charizard. I look over to my table with Pokeballs with a label at the top. The label read, Ash's Pokemon. Then had labels of every Pokemon I had at the ranch and some that I had dropped off for training. From that moment on I knew that this was something bad. I triggered my aura sight and began to monitor everyone including Pikachu. Ash, you need to quit, stop being a trainer, you're not making it anywhere, look at your records. You have been at this since you were 10 years old and now you are almost 5 years and still no league victories. Misty says as I stop focusing on them and focus on the one aura I didn't understand. Dawn, she had a blazing blue and green aura. While the others all had the black aura of a traitor, she had the blue aura of a friend and the green aura of family. Even my mom had the aura of traitor. So all but one of you is a traitor, huh? Should have seen this coming, I mean it is human nature. I am not even surprised by my mom's betrayal. After all, why care for the runt when she had such a great son with my brother? But let me ask you all a question. When was the last time you heard from Red? Or how about when was the last time any of you actually called me, talked to me, asked me about my travels? I say, and they realize that this wasn't bothering me. Pika, Chew, Pika, yeah, but your brother won leagues. Also, I am no longer your Pokemon. Pikachu says as he jumps onto Max's shoulder. I just shrug it off. First, Pikachu, not really surprised about this. Second, to all of you, not once did almost all of you call me. The only one that ever bothered to call me was you, Serena, and I told you that I liked you, but you said that you had fallen for Callum. Instantly, I felt a hand on my shoulder. No one seemed to realize it was there but me. Either they didn't see it or they were too shocked from what I was saying. Alright, fine, since none of you want me to be a trainer, let me hear what you got for me, but remember my preferences. I said as I moved a chair under me and sat down. They all froze and then one did the most ignorant thing of his life. You can just leave Pokemon behind. After all, none of your Pokemon are strong. I mean, I beat your Pikachu as a newbie. Trip says as I look at him and laugh. Yeah, I had to limit him as it was, and then Zekrom struck him with lightning, numbing his electric abilities entirely. It was like he was a level 3, but in reality he was about level 70, maybe 75. Trip froze when I said that. Everything then made sense to my ex-friends. I stood up and began to walk towards my Pokeballs only to feel something cold and sharp pass through my chest and something burn through my arm. I turned to see May and Max with weapons in their hands. I smile as I fall to the ground. Fate has ways of working as they all look shell-shocked as I hit the ground. Blood seeping from my body onto the rugged floor. They all began to panic as they tried to figure out their story, and I used this time to use my aura to get away. After I got away, the last thing I remember is a tree and then I fade to black. In the Hall of Judgment, Shelebi mind set. Arceus, they have betrayed him, left him for dead. His Pokemon are calling out for help. All but that Pikachu of his. He is laughing at the child. He shows no remorse to the child for leaving him with no defense in the forest. Mutwo said to the alpha Pokémon. This is correct, Mutwo, and what have I told you about using my name? I hear father say to the clone Pokémon. Sorry sir, but this is serious. The chosen one of so many of us is now in a forest somewhere, probably tired or asleep with no Pokémon to defend him, dying from blood loss and infection. Mutwo said as the other legends started to arrive, and hearing the last part began to ask questions to one another. Alright, since you're all here, I can explain what has happened to our chosen one. Arceus let the talking and murmuring of his children quiet, and then proceeded to explain the situation. The chosen one has fallen, his Pokémon stolen, his friends betrayed him. He is in the Viridian Forest in Kanto, lost and confused, bleeding, shot, stabbed, fading from reality, and all this by the one he called a mother and those he once called friend and ally. Arceus said as some of the younger legends began to panic. I was especially mad and teleported to the one that helped her get better. The one that held her the day that the evil man forced her to destroy the forest. The one that helped save her from the iron-masked marauder. When she found her chosen one, he was on the ground as rain buried his body. He was not bleeding, but that just meant that his aura healed his wound. But he still needed a place to stay safe and away from those that would harm him. Celebi, why did you leave the meeting? God Daddy is very angry with you for interfering with the chosen one. Wait, your power is not at all on his body. Did he heal himself? Manaphy said behind the fairy Pokémon. I have no idea, Manaphy, but to call the rest of the council down we need to get him to a safe place away from the main regions. I said, and I hear the rest of the council voice their agreements. Celebi POV Viridian Forest. When the council appeared we were all staring at our chosen one. Alright Celebi, since you think that is the best movement, then you will tell us what to do. You have 3 jobs to succeed at. The first is to get his Pokémon back to him, all but that Pikachu. The second is for you to heal him of his emotional scarring, get him a new family, rather than be a new group of friends or a new mother, you decide. The last is to choose a location that no one would think of going to look for him. And I'll tell you what, if you succeed you can join him on his journey. Arceus said to the fairy, via telepathy. Celebi nodded and got to work on devising a plan. Starting with the third job, the second job would be easier for sure if she did the third job first. The first job is the easiest for her, being that if the Pokémon were split between the group of friends she could travel back in time and figure out which had which Pokémon. Father, I have the first answer to my first problem. She finally said. Speak, child, and I will see if you have done good. The islands of Alola, they would be perfect to hide him. None of the traders know where it is, and others that don't know who he is cause they are still pretty new to the league. Celebi said as Giratina appeared and opened a portal to Alola. Okay, your first job is complete. Arceus said to his child of time. The next part is to find him a family who will provide him with care and love. They must help him through this time. His heart and soul have been weakened by sadness, hatred, and depression. It has been split into 7 pieces. Arceus says to me and the rest of his children. He will most likely have lost perseverance, integrity, bravery, kindness, patience, determination, justice, and humor. He will most likely need love to bring these pieces back out. So I give that job to the legends of Alola and the rest of you. 8 soul fragments, 7 girls, make it happen. He needs to be stronger in his heart and his soul. He is already strong in spirit that will never be broken. Xerneas says to all of us. Now, daughter, why have you chosen Alola for the chosen one? Arceus says to me. This part was easy for me once I had the location. I know all about how Alola works. There are teenagers all over the islands and the professor is always looking for help around his lab. Arceus chuckled and said, well done. Now what about the last job? His Pokémon have been split between the traders and those they couldn't use they left in the care of Oak. Arceus said to his daughter. This one I call to all legendaries of all regions. I will become the searcher and guardian of his Pokémon, and I ask that Giratina watch over his chosen one so that I may return his Pokémon to him one day. Arceus chuckled and said, very well, child. You heard her. My children, watch out for his Pokémon. Send Celebi a signal when you see one, and Giratina, send him to Alola, but keep an eye on him, and I ask that the Alolan legends Please help him keep an eye on your islands and Pokémon that are abandoned, send them to him. Akio said. And the legends nodded. Alola region Trial Cave, how POV. Today we were asked by Ilama to help him around the Trial Cave. The Pokémon in the cave had become more irritated. They had begun to attack trainers and other Pokémon that had been trying to take the trial. However, when Ilama, Lily and myself had entered the cave, a Gumshoes had appeared and led us to the back area where it pointed to a kid in trainer clothes with a stab wound in his chest and a gunshot wound in his arm. It looked like he had been left to die here in the cave. Lily covered her mouth and began to cry. This wasn't the first time she had seen dead bodies after all the events that happened nearly a year ago were proof of that. However, she had never seen a kid in this kind of condition. She ran over to the Gumshoes and began to beg and plead with it to help her get the kid to the hospital. It didn't even argue, just nodded and began to help us carry him to the Poke Center, which was the closest active hospital. When we got there, the Audio, Chansey and Wigglytuff began to act. They brought out a stretcher and treatment kits. They rushed him into the air section of the center and led us to the waiting room, giving Lily a change of clothes. We waited there all night, mostly because Lily wouldn't leave the kid by himself. It wasn't till the next morning when we would hear that he was stable but in a coma. 2 days later, Ash's mind, Ash POV. I was standing on a platform in the middle of a void. The platform seemed to be made of stained glass and had a picture of me with a bunch of Pokémon. When I look up, I see what appear to be people. Welcome to Dreamland, Chosen One. This is the location that both me and Cresselia control, and we are here to help you bring back the person you were before now. A voice says to me, I mean, it's cool that I am your chosen one, but I have no idea who you are. Wait, the Dreamland, isn't that what the realm of Darkrai and Cresselia control? I mean, that makes sense as they are the legendary dream duo. I say as I walk forward, almost subconsciously reaching out to a window. These are all your memories. We will start by find them all again. It will be slow, but we can do this. Let's start with your name. Well, your human name. A female voice says as I touch the mirror. The clear glass shatters and is replaced by more stained glass. This one, just me, well, several different me, all with different clothes on, and I realized then it was trainer clothes. So I'm a Pokemon trainer, sweet. At least I am not a seamstress. I say as I walk over to the next memory. Yes, you are a Pokemon trainer, one of the best. However, something negative happened to you, and as of current point the other legends as well as the two of us are trying to locate all of your Pokemon, but we also had to move you to another region. Darkrai says as I touch the next memory. The glass shatters again and is replaced by a new set of stained glass. This time it's badge cases. 6 completely filled cases with small pins. These are what you humans call gym badges. You traveled 6 different regions, caught over 60 Pokemon, with just as many completed badge cases. You will be doing something similar here. Cresselia says as I travel to the center of the glass platform. What can you remember about the Chosen One? It may be difficult, but we need to know. Darkrai says as I sit down crossed-legged. I needed to clear my head. Think about this. I remember a girl with long blonde hair, wearing Lucario clips in her hair, a brunette with a Piplup. An orange dragon that doesn't seem to listen to me when I give a command. I remember a Miss Magius that just wanted to give hope, let them see the dream they wanted to achieve since they started. More glass breaks and is replaced by the stained glass. Or partials. Look at that, more pieces of the puzzle. If we keep at it, you may have all your memories back by the end of the year. Cresselia says as the images show what each one represented. For right now, Chosen One, take a rest. You will need it for when all the memories. Darkrai says as my eyes begin to grow heavy. I begin to close them and enter the realm of Cresselia for real this time, or as far as I knew the real one. 1 week later, Alola region, Melee Island, Lily POV. At the start of this week, the trainer Hao and I had found in the trial cave had been saved just in time. The doctors said that if we had not found him when we did, he would have bleed out. After 2 days he was out of the dark and had brain function, so he was no longer in the Zoma we found him in, but now he just wouldn't wake up. Between day 2 and day 5, whenever Hao and I would visit or when the doctors would come to check on him and check on his vitals, there would be Pokeballs that were registered to him. Inside would be super powerful and seemed to be trained by him for a long time. By day 5 he was twitching in his sleep, and even talking, murmuring about lost or broken memories. But this morning he was awake. He had still had no name, yet everyone had given him the name Ash, as he was like a phoenix, coming back from basically death like he was, is an achievement. Like the phoenix he returns from the ash, is what the doctors say. Also on top of that, a green fairy started to appear during the night. The next night he was in the air. It would sometimes leave pokeballs with it and would drop them off before vanishing completely. Nurse Joyce would take the pokeballs and take them to the center to heal them. This fairy turned out to be a Celebi, and it looked like it was watching out for this trainer. But that wasn't the most mysterious part. Every so often the cameras would see darkened parts of the walls and floor that had 2 red eyes peering through, like they were watching the boy who was in the bed. Yesterday actually we found 3 Pokeballs with a Pidgeot with a Mega Stone in a sash holder, a Lapras, and a Greninja. We put them in the Pokemon Center and let them rest, but they seemed to know the trainer well. But, again, that was yesterday. This morning, when I came into his room, we found a Goodra in a Pokeball that someone had placed in his hands. But that wasn't even the best part. He was awake. When I entered his room, he was sitting up in his bed looking at the Pokeball. Thank you, Celebi Giratina, for returning him to me. Originally thought about ending it here, however I am not an a-hole so I didn't, he said in a husky dry voice. I made a noise that was somewhere between a squeak and a squeal when I heard his voice. Hello there, Lily Ether. He said to me when he heard the noise. Hi. I said back a little concerned. Can you get the doctor for me? I really have to pee. He says to me as the Pokeball pops open and Goodra stares at the trainer and hugs him. The entire time he was smiling. I ran and got the doctor, because he was awake finally. I saved a life. What could be better than that? 2 days later, how POV. I came to visit the kid Lily and I found in the trial cave, about a week ago. So what can you remember about your life so far? I hear Lily say as I get closer. I remember several badge cases filled with 8 badges, and a Charizard that would never listen to me. That must have been the kid Lily and I found in the forest having a conversation with Lily. I still can't believe that the totem Pokemon came to help us and the kid get back to the city and to the hospital. Do you remember your name? Maybe some friends or family we can call. They are probably worried sick about you. I hear Lily ask the kid. There was a brief silence before the kid said something I will never forget. My name is Ash Ketchum and I am from Kanto region. My friends and family are the ones that shot and stabbed me. How I got here, I am unsure of. Where my Pokemon are, is something I may never find out. I would like to go on a journey on the island, but my license was revoked, thanks to a rumor. He says as I see him bring out a Pokeball. I don't understand a lot of what happened this past soup bowl of days, but I know that I would like to stay here on the islands. Ashton says as a Goodra walks past me into the room, holding a tray with 4 other Pokeballs on it. Thank you, Goodra. Ash, these are the Pokemon that were left here by the Celebi, a Pidgeot that can Mega Evolve, Lapras that seems a little small, a Greninja that seems to want to constantly be by your side, the Goodra that brought you the Pokemon, and a Primeape that is super strong. 3 weeks later, Ash POV. The girl with blonde hair came again today. She handed me 3 Pokeballs and said that a day before I woke up they appeared in my room. Her voice was a sound to be heard on a bad day. It was beautiful and made my day every time I heard it. It made me sad when she left and even sadder when she wasn't here the next day. I mean, How was okay and he was a good friend and my Pokemon were awesome, but I knew from the stories they told me I had more out there. This also made me sad because my family wasn't whole and by the sounds of it, those that turned on me had them. But not everything is bad. Yesterday 2 more Pokeballs arrived inside an Ambipom and Haunter. They told me how they were connected to me. The Ambipom told me that I once traded it to a person as an Apom. The person that I once called my friend was named Dawn and that he no longer wanted to be her Pokemon. The Haunter told me the story of how I caught it. How I never actually caught it, but powered its power to take on a gym in Kanto that I never actually defeated. How I left it at the gym at its request. How it heard the story from the gym leader of what happened to me and instantly told her that he wanted to become my official Pokemon. Then later that night, in my dream I heard a voice. Not the blonde's but a voice that was darker than her voice, and when I would dream I would fall into a shadow. In these dreams where I fall into the darkness, I see red eyes. But when I could see again, I would see a dragonic-like beam that would appear from a black tar-like substance that gave me nightmares. He would tell me about the Pokeballs that would appear. And slowly my memory of these Pokemon would come back. Sometimes though I would see a green flash in my sleep and I would be in a ruin where a fairy-like Pokemon was. But it was helping me with my memory problem. Healing my mind a little bit every day that we met. Sometimes after having these dreams the blonde would ask me, "Do you have any new memories today, Ash?" I would smile and tell her about my journeys all over the world and about how I saved the world from destruction, when a Pokemon poacher tried to steal the legendary Titans and revealed himself to be the chosen one of Lugia. I told her more of the betrayal, how I had more Pokemon and how I met them. How the traders had them and how there were more Pokemon on the way, some coming from the wild and some from other regions. Then the day came that I was waiting for. "Good news, Ash, you are being allowed to leave tomorrow. If you feel up to it you can leave tonight," Lily says to me as a nurse steps into the doorway. "Excuse me, but unless Mr. Ketchum is leaving today, you need to go missing. I am not trying to be mean, but he still needs a little rest, but he may leave tomorrow. If he does stay for the night." Lily nodded and got up to leave. As she left she turned towards me and smiled. "I hope to see you tomorrow outside and being your old self." I nodded to her, too dumbfounded to speak, so dumbfounded that at that moment I didn't trust my voice to not speak what I was thinking. She smiles again, that angelic smile that made my heart do jumping jacks, then she leaves. "You're starting to like her, aren't you?" the nurse says to me. I only nod my head, still not trusting my voice to work right. "You know she was here for you every day that you were out, and now that you are awake she stops by every day even after visiting hours to check on you," the nurse said to me as she took my vitals. "Is it that obvious?" I asked the nurse, who was a middle-aged tanned woman. She smiled at me and said, "Honey, a blind man could see that you like her." She made me smile with that phrase, and she smiled when I smiled. "You remind me of my son. He started his journey here in Alola. His name is Sunday. Maybe you'll meet him here on the island when you get out of here." I nodded and hoped that I would, and he was just like her. Later that night, Ash POV. Talking to Giratina. I started having flashbacks to the betrayal and how much it hurt. How I almost gave up and wanted to die. But I am a phoenix, for in those 3 weeks I have made new friends. The first is a young lady by the name of Lily. She was cute, I guess. She had long blonde hair and she kept it hidden under a sun hat. She was thin and a little shy. She wasn't a trainer, but she knew a lot about Pokemon and the islands of Alola. The next is a kid with green hair that is the grandson of the kahuna of Melee Island. Whatever a kahuna is, he was always full of energy and had the spirit of a trainer. He was enthusiastic and was always up for a challenge. His name is How, and him and his Piku and Poplio were taking something here called the Island Challenge. He was supposedly on his first trial when he found me. I smiled at that because I knew I had the ability to go on a journey if I wanted to. They were the ones that found me covered in my own blood in a forest here on Melee Island. They called for help, and even though no one could hear them, help still came in the form of a gigantic Gumshoos. What's a Gumshoos? They pulled me into town with the help of the Gumshoos. Then when I woke up they were here asking me questions. What my name was I was a new trainer. I answered them all truthfully when they found out where I was from. They asked me how I got to Alola, and I told them then that I didn't know how. All I knew was I blacked out from the stab wound in my chest. Then I woke up in the hospital room. They said that once I was released to meet them on Route 1 and they would give me a tour of the island. I smiled and thanked them for what they said and helped me. I smiled and it felt good. "Well, we have to go, but we'll be back tomorrow to talk to you," How said to me as he left the room taking Lily with him. I smiled again and felt that the world was right again. Then I heard a voice I never wanted to hear again. "Is my son here, Ashton Ketchum?" I just wanted to slip into the coma again. "No ma'am, he's not. The most recent person we have come in is a John Doe that's from the island." The nurse said. I knew she was trying to help me. She knew what my mother did to me, and even connected to me on a parental level, because she herself was a parent to a boy about my age. So to keep me calm she would come and visit me after each test. She would ask me about my memories, so she knew that my mom wanted me to quit just like the rest of my friends. She also knew that I never wanted to see my mother again, not after what she did to me. But then I saw my mom turn towards me, and I knew she recognized me, and I knew there was no way she was leaving without me. "That's him, Ash, honey, it's me." I growled and heard a deep sound and felt hatred for the women who wanted me to give up on my dream. The nurse must have been psychic because she told my mom I was a kid from the island named Sun who was getting physical to start a journey. Then an owl-like Pokemon flew in from the window and rested on my arm like he had done this 1,000 times. "And ma'am, as you can see, his starter just arrived, so please leave your yelling bothering the other patients." My mom began to walk out until she did the unthinkable. She kicked the nurse in the stomach and rushed towards me. 10 guards rushed her just before she reached my bed. From there she began to yell at me. "Ashton Ketchum, you are coming home with me this instant. Your mother misses you, your friends miss you." That broke the dam, holding back the anger. I made a gesture that told the guards to let her come. The Pokemon that was resting on my arm got off and took a defensive stance in front of me. "If you really were my mother, you would have let me keep going on with my dreams. You would have stopped those traitors from doing what they did. In fact, the other traitors I can deal with, Officer Jenny's, have already been alerted to the stolen Pokemon, I guess you could say from an anonymous source." I said to her as I was given help to stand by a nurse's assistant. "You let them steal my friend and, as far as I care, my only family from me. There is no way for you to fix what you have done. Now I want you to sign the papers I have asked to have prepared if you ever came around again. Separation papers, I believe they are called. You are to sign, and if you do not, then there are Officer Jenny's outside waiting to arrest you. Here in Alola, disturbing the peace is a very heinous crime." She looked at me almost in tears. "I challenge you." I hear her say and I smile. "I accept on one condition, you lose, you leave and sign the papers." She nodded and we walked out to the battlefield, me in a wheelchair cause of the meds I was on for the pain. Once there she throws out her Pokeball and a Dragonite appears. Not even a warm-up, mother, Gudra takes the stage. I yell, throwing out my own pseudo-legend. "Mom, you may have the first move." She tried to hide her tears but still called the command. Dragonite uses Draco Meteor to try to end this quickly. Gudra uses Aqua and Dragon Tails to knock down the meteors, then use Thunderbolt. Gudra followed the orders, mixing the first 2 attacks into a sea green energy around his tail and crouching down. When Dragonite fires the attack, Gudra jumped higher than one would expect from a Pokemon of his size class and started to knock back the meteors. Dragonite uses your extreme speed to dodge the meteors, then fire a hurricane. She yelled to her dragon only for her to realize there was nowhere for Dragonite to go. "End this, Gudra." Using his strong legs, Gudra launched himself into the air again and fired off a Dragon Pulse, officially ending the battle. Dragonite is unable to battle, Ash and Gudra win. My mother looked devastated. She now felt my pain, but this wasn't me talking. "You know the deal. Sign the papers and tell the other traitors what happened, 'cause one day I may just come for them as well. Tell them they better be taking care of my Pokemon, cause when I come, I will only leave once I have them." She nodded and walked away. I then collapsed out of the chair and onto the ground. The last feeling is strong non-human arms pick me up and bird talons land on my chest. Route 1, Alola region, Naimele Island. 2 days later. 2 days later I am outside the hospital with the owl Pokemon, which I learned was called Rowlet, on my shoulder and my other Pokemon clipped to my belt. And right now I am walking towards Route 1. Hao and Lily visited every day just like they said they would. When they found out what happened, they asked where I got the Rowlet, so I told them the story, how the owl Pokemon had flown through my window and landed on the arm of my bed. How my mom and I had a battle after she found out that I was in the hospital and tried to take me home. How when I said I would only leave Alola if she could beat me in a battle. How she failed miserably once I brought out Gudra and crushed her Dragonite. "So you grew up in Kanto?" Hao asks me as I finish telling him the story of my first journey. "I heard that the region is very peaceful and serene," Lily said as we continued to walk down the road. "Yeah, it was, and it was always a happy place for me. It was home. I still miss the air. But this is my new home. I will make a better life here and maybe even follow in my father's footsteps and become a Pokemon master." I say to them as we turn a corner. You must be Ash, and I see how and Lily helped you get to me. Thank you, you too. This was said by Professor Kukui, who was dressed in a white lab coat and gray shorts. Hello, Professor. Been a while since I said those words. I said to the professor as I walked over to him. Yes, it has. I see you healed up. That scar gives you an intimidating look. But the ice on your arm says that you are still hurting. Kukui said. I nodded and took the ice off my arm. It's bonded ice, made from mine and Greninja's aura bond. One guess I have a bond with him that runs that deep. The ice didn't melt, and the area that was once covered in scars was now healed once more. Sometimes I forget some things like that, so my Pokémon that were returned to me help me try to remember what I have forgotten. I know that I have over 65 Pokémon stolen from me, but I can't remember what they were. My Pokémon help me to remember, but sometimes I still forget. Lily began to tear up. She knew that my family was that of my Pokémon. Ash, we are going to help you get your memories and Pokémon back. We just need to know your full name. Ashton Satoshi Ketchum, age 16, Wandering Trainer. Starter Pokémon Pikachu. Current Pokémon, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Charizard, Kingler, 30 different Tauros, Mook, Primeape, Snorlax, Bayleaf, Totodile, Kalava, Noctowl, Donphan, Heracross, Sceptile, Corphish, Swellow, Glalie, Torkoal, Staraptor, Bizel, Tora, Infernape, Glisker, Gibble, Unpheasant, Oshawott, Pignite, Snivy, Scraggy, Levany, Palpitoad, Bold or Crocodile, Talonflame, Hulch, Noivern, and Rowlet. Traded Pokémon, Ambipom and Raticate. Released Pokémon, Butterfree, Pidgeot, Lapras, Greninja and Goodra. BZZT Update New Release Pikachu. Given away, Beedrill. Unofficial, Haunter, Larvitar and Rio. Number of badges, titles. Champion of Orange Islands, Defeater of the Battle Frontier of Kanto, Runner-up in the Kalos League, and Savior of Kalos. My Pokédex chimed. I forgot I had one when I left my house, the rest are still there. Mom was probably looking at all that was left there, my trophies from tournaments. Well, Ash, we can get them all back to you, but I hear from a little bird that you like to travel around regions and compete in leagues. I nod to what the professor says to me. What he said next both shocked me to my very core and made me really happy. We have the start of a league here in Alola, and if you want, you can get a starter from me and start your journey. I hugged the professor. This may have been my chance. No, this was the chance that I needed to prove them wrong. All right, Professor, I am going to take on the league here. He nodded and we walked down a hilly road that he explained was also route. All right, Ash, things you need to know about the Alola League. First, there are no gyms here. We do things called trials. There are a total of 7 trials on the islands of Alola. Then at the end of every trial you will need to face off against the leader of the islands called Kahunas. There are 4 Kahunas just like there are 4 islands. You will earn Z crystals at each trial site, but there are others located at each island. For example, Melee Island has a total of 3 Z crystals on it, Normalium Z, which you get from the trial here on the island, Phytinium Z, which you get by defeating our island Kahuna Hala, and Flyinium Z, which is hidden somewhere here on the island. Kukui explained as he showed me a picture of the crystals he was talking about. Z crystals are a source of power here in Alola. They allow a trainer and Pokémon to unlock power that is hidden within themselves and use the hidden Z moves that all Pokémon can use. As me and him walked farther down the hill, we stopped and looked behind us, realizing that Hao and Lily were no longer behind us. Then we heard it. Her blood-curdling scream from somewhere on the island. Kukui, we need your help, that girl has fallen at the wooden bridge. A large man said to us as I froze. That scream had to Lily. I grab a Pokeball and throw it up. Pidgeot gets me to the falls. I didn't know how I knew that was where she was, I just knew. A sixth sense if you must, but I really can't tell you what caused it. When she appeared, she flew down to me and grabbed me in her talons and held on tight. The falls down island, Ash POV. Pidgeot got me to the falls quicker than I thought she would. She was panting heavily, but I tapped the side of her neck in a loving way and in an appreciating way. She cooed as I looked at the wooden bridge. On approach I saw what had happened. The bridge had snapped. Lily was hanging onto a piece of the bridge and a little purple Pokémon was clinging to Lily for dear life. Pidgeot, I need you to drop me. I say to her. My bird Pokemon seems hesitant at first, but when she sees the confident look in my eyes. She then turns to the left slightly and I jump off and begin to fall. As I fall, I pull out Greninja and Lapra's Pokeballs and throw them up. Lapras appeared in the river and Greninja landed on the other side of the bridge. Alright Pidgeot, let's go, take me to the air. Pidgeot zoomed through the air and caught me, throwing me on her back. My mind was blank but filled with a crazy plan. Lapras, get ready, if Lily falls you need to catch her. Greninja, I am going to need you to catch me or her if either falls off. Pidgeot. Both nodded to me as Pidgeot got closer to the bridge. The closer I got, the more nervous I got because I knew I could only do this if Lily didn't thrash about. She was scared, but if I grabbed her then I would spook her into thrashing. I reached out to her and grabbed a hold. That was a mistake. She began to thrash. This spooked Pidgeot and I ended up throwing Lily onto my bird's back. Myself though I felt. But that's not what was scary. What was scary is that Greninja missed and ended up knocking me away from Lapras. What's scarier, I had no backup plan. Even scarier, none of my other Pokemon could fly or survive in water this rapid. I just smiled as I fell. I had helped a person, saved a soul from death at the cost of my own life. As I fell, the smile grew as I began to laugh at the irony here. Saved by the doctors only to die in a freak accident. But then the strangest thing happened. I felt myself be caught by something, then taken to the other side of the bridge. You must be a more careful chosen one. Alola is a beautiful region but is also unforgiving to those who take this region carelessly. A voice said to me telepathically. I then opened my eyes to see a totem-like Pokemon with a beak. Thank you for saving me. The Pokemon nodded, well, shifted its body forward in a nodding-like gesture. It then handed me a silver stone that looked like or from a mine, and flew off. Ash, that was Tapu Koko, he's the island guardian of Melee. And what's this, he handed that stone to you, didn't he? Kukui said to me as I handed him the stone. What is, Professor? Lily asked him as he began to walk away. This will be ready for you when you get back, Ash. Till then, come back to the lab and get you registered and also give you the surprise I have for you. I smiled and ran after him. Lily and how not far behind. So I guess the new question is, who am I? But I can now answer that with some confidence. My name is Ash Ketchum. I am a Pokemon trainer from Pallet Town, Kanto. My starter Pokemon was a Pikachu that along with my friends and family left me for dead because they wanted me to give up on my dream. My new partner is Rowlet and we plan to take on the Alola region together. I plan to find my missing pieces from my previous life and creating a new life here on the islands of Alola. Hey kid, what's your name? Someone says to me as we walk to a cave. He was wearing a yellow robe and a blue shirt underneath it. That used to be a loaded question, but now with confidence I say that my name is Ash Ketchum, and I plan to recreate my life. Ash POV, 2 weeks after hospital stay. This is the last day here in the Dreamland. So my only question to you is, who are you? I hear Darkrai say as I look at the final glass window, that is the last memory. This will restore my final piece, or at least my final piece of memories. That really used to be a complicated and loaded question, but now I can say, for absolute certainty, that I am Ashton Satoshi Ketchum, of the Kanto region. I am the chosen one of the legends, and the savior of the world. I am the betrayed one, the one that will stand against the Dark One, and the one that scars the sky. I say as pieces of the memory start to reveal themselves. I am a trainer and the champion of the Orange Islands. I hope to see my Pokemon rise back. Ash POV, a month after hospital stay. Alright Ash, let's get your picture taken and you should be all set. Officer Johnny, the male version of Officer Jenny, said as he guided me over to a white screen where a very big and odd-looking camera rested. Any special background wanted, Ash? Kukui asks me as the officer starts warming up the camera. Well, actually I don't want a special background that can be random, but can I use a Pokemon? I asked the officer, who just shrugged. Thank you. Alright, now come on out, Rowlet. I call out my owl friend, who lands on my shoulder blade. Me and Rowlet stood with determination in our eyes. Alright, and 1, 2, 3, smile. I smiled and Rowlet fell asleep on my shoulder. He was happy about his trainer being happy. Alright, that is a good picture. welcome to Alola, son," the officer said as he passed me a blue book with a picture of the 4 islands on it. "This is your trainer's license, passport, and record book for here on the island. All of your digital information will be downloaded to a Pokédex you will receive from the regional professor Kukui," the officer said to me as I opened said book and saw the picture he had taken. "Now listen, Ash, there is one more thing that myself and my wife wanted to ask you," Kukui said as Professor Burnett walked into the office. "Now, as you know, Ash, you are only 16, so you need a parent or guardian to register you as a citizen. Now on your passport that space is blank and Johnny here allowed it for a temporary thing. But my wife and I would like to know if you want to be adopted by us." There was a moment of silence, then the noise of a book falling and footsteps running. I dropped my passport and ran towards Kukui, bringing him into a big hug. I then hugged Burnett, but when I hugged her I began to cry. "I'll take that as a yes then. Officer Johnny, do you have adoption papers here?" The officer nodded and grabbed the papers. Dad, do you need me here for anything? I want to catch some Alola Pokemon." Kukui and Burnett looked at the officer, who shook his head and said, "All we need is to know, is your full name." I looked at the license and took a deep breath before saying, "Ashton Satoshi Ketchum." My mom was tearing up as the name left my mouth. It was the last memory I had to get back, my full name. So to them and my friends this was a large milestone that I had reached here on the islands. Kukui then handed me 3 Pokeballs. "For right now that's all I have on me. I bought them for you on the way over. I already know for sure that you are going to want to go on a journey, so after much discussion with Burnett, when we get back to the lab, we are going to get you ready." I smiled and high-fived him, then ran outside, trying to think of what I may want to capture. I left the station with the Pokeballs in my hands. I had planned to do some training with Rowlet today, so I left the Pokemon that had returned to me while I was in the hospital, back at the lab. Mostly for now because they were too for this island's wild Pokemon. That meant that all I had was Rowlet, who was on my shoulder, and I was too lazy to return him to his Pokeball. "Alright, Rowlet, we are going to search for some new friends," I say my avian friend, who hooted a little lazily while I looked around the area. The beach was just over the railing, and then there were the small grasslands in between the buildings, and finally there was the sky and sea, tons of areas to search for Pokemon. "Ash, I almost forgot this is for you," I hear Burnett say. I turn and see her coming out of the station, with what looks like my old Pokédex in her hands. When she got to me, she handed me the small device and began to explain what was new about it. "This is the Pokédex you arrived with, but it has been updated with a few new upgrades and the information of all Alola Pokemon and Alolan forms of Pokemon from Kanto." I looked at the dex for the first time and confirmed that it definitely used to be my Unova dex. I had originally switched to it back at the end of Kalos because it was lighter and fit in my pocket and was easier to point at Pokemon. It was originally black and orange, with a Pokeball design as the power button with a green screen. It was now fiery dark red. Lightning bolts were running up the sides. Above the button was the image of a Rotom that was also a fiery red. The screen was black, and with a crimson red and black Pokeball as the button. On the back where the camera used to be was where the Rotom's arms ended. It had a digital camera, which was like the new phones with 3 cameras for better quality. I looked at my new mom with confusion because of the design. The Pokédex here in Alola also is a proof of friendship here. We use Rotom to help all trainers here. It extends the life of a Pokédex and helps trainers with wild Pokemon. It also allows us to understand the abilities of the Plasma Pokemon. I nodded before hugging my mom in thanks and slid the Pokédex into my bag. "Now to capture some new friends," I say as she hugs me again, and then I take off towards the sea. Tomorrow I was going to be starting the Island Challenge. So I knew that I would need some more Pokemon. But also I would be with Lily, and that made me want to be at the top of my game. As for my friends, well, today I am on my own because Lily wanted to go to the library and how was needed at the school for something. Which I wasn't mad about because I knew they had responsibilities just like I do. But to say that I didn't want them here for this would be a lie. But I needed to focus on something else. If I focus on missing my time with them, then I would remember my times with the traders. You know before what happened. The sound of the water or of the rock types grinding against the rocks by the beach were all reminders of them. The children playing with Pokémon, new trainers playing with their Pokémon, and the girl performing contest moves was a reminder. I hated them all, but I also needed to stop thinking about them. Anger was not the answer. Loathing them was also not the answer. I was out by the oceans. In Alola, the water is a place of serenity and peace. This was my time to relax and see what water and ice types Alola offered. I have a Z-ring, maybe I could look in the ocean for a Z-crystal. But with Rowlet being a grass-flying type, there was no point. But I needed more friends. Needed to become stronger to prove the traders wrong. Jangmo-o. I hear a Pokémon say to me as I walk farther down the beach. I looked behind me and saw a weird quadrupedal Pokémon with a heart-shaped scale on his head. Hey, what's your name? I felt a vibration from my bag as I pulled out my Pokédex. Jangmo-o, the scaly Pokémon. A dragon type. Because Jangmo-o uses the scales on its head for both offense and defense, it never turns its back to its enemies. Many trainers see this behavior and take it as proof that Jangmo-o is a valiant Pokémon. My Pokédex said as Jangmo-o looked at me expectantly. You must be hungry here. I say, passing the Pokémon and Oran berry. The dragon Pokémon took the berry and began to eat it happily. Alright buddy, well we should be going. How about you come with us? My name is Ash and my buddy on my shoulder is Rowlet. Rowlet let off a coo in communication with the dragon type. The dragon type looked at me, then behind it, as if it had heard something. If you have a family, you do not have to come with me, the choice is yours. I told Jangmo-o, who looked at me, then back to some bushes where a white fox Pokémon came out. Alolan Vulpix, the ice fox Pokémon, an ice type. These Alolan forms of the popular Kanto fire type live on high mountains that remain covered in snow year-round. They live in small packs of 2 to 5 individuals, helping one another survive. My Pokédex chimed as the Pokémon came out of the bushes and towards us. Is this what you were worried about? I say as I laugh. This was straight up the big bad dragon got tamed by a child, seeing as the Vulpix could not have been more than a few days old. Jangmo-o nodded and helped the little Pokémon over to us. Well, let me help you too, I said, picking up the Vulpix and putting it on my shoulder before trying to pick up the Jangmo-o, only for it to try to bite me. Alright, I won't pick you up, but please follow. I don't know much about Vulpix. Jangmo-o did as he was told and followed close by on the ground, and Rowlet took flight watching from the air. He would growl at other people who got too close to Vulpix. When I got to the Poke Center, Nurse Joy looked at me before asking her usual question. How may I help you? She seemed cheerful for some reason when she saw the Jangmo-o and Vulpix with me. Hey Nurse Joy. I say to her with the same energy she said to me. I was at the beach and these 2 Pokémon came over to me and seemed to ask for some help. So I hate to ask this since you seem really busy today, but could you take a look at them? I don't want them to head back out into the wild and die because I didn't help them. I ask her as I pass her the little Vulpix. This Vulpix looks no more than 3 days old. She doesn't seem to know how to find food or even water on her own. Possibly originally trainer-owned. I say to the Nurse Joy who took the fox Pokémon and put her on a gurney. The other one is this Jangmo-o. He looks pretty rough but can survive on its own. He was definitely trainer-raised at one point, but the trainer released him for unknown reasons. He came to me for food, so I would like him checked out for signs of starvation and thirst. I told Joy, who tried to pick up the dragon type. I wouldn't do that, Joy. He has a tendency to. I didn't get the chance to finish my sentence because Jangmo-o used Focus Blast on the Joy. I'm so sorry, I was trying to warn you that he isn't too keen on being picked up or touched. Nurse Joy looked at the dragon type and shrugged before walking back into the care area with the dragon type following close behind. Hours later, Joy walked out and said that Jangmo-o was a little underweight and needed a trainer's help with that. The Vulpix was in peak condition, however. But very young, it appears that she was never caught by a trainer, she just wandered down from the mountain. Thank you, Nurse Joy. I told her as I walked towards the door. Mr. Ketchum, aren't these your Pokémon? She says to me as I go to leave. No, they are wild Pokémon, I mean unless they want to come with me. I said as Jangmo-o walked over to me and nudged my Pokeballs. It appears he wants to join and Vulpix seems to have adopted him as a mother. Nurse Joy told me as Vulpix ran over to me and nudged the Pokeballs as well. Alright, You guys want to join me on my adventure through Alola? I ask the Pokemon at my feet, who nod vigorously. I pull out 2 Pokeballs and hold them out to the Pokemon. They both use their paws to tap the center button and the ball SEG them in. Alright, I just caught a Jangmo-o and Vulpix. ROWW. Rowlet yelled out in excitement as I held 2 Pokeballs in my hands. I flash back to when I had Pikachu and realized that I used to do the same thing with him, only for what happened now to happen. Alright, I need to go, so thank you, Nurse Joy, I said as I ran out of the center and into Hao and Lily. Hey guys, I say as I clip my new Pokemon to my trainer belt. Hao saw me do this but said nothing on the subject. Hey Ash, what you up to? Never mind, I spoke too soon. Hao asks me as he points out the new Pokeballs I just clipped to my belt. Nothing much, just caught 2 new Pokemon and was going to be heading home. I say nonchalantly as Hao's jaw dropped and Lily smiled at me. Her smile always made me want to show off like I was some kind of playboy. I also always want to impress her. What are these feelings that have been appearing in my mind? I don't know her that well, but over the past couple months since I woke up, she and I have been making deeper connections. I shook my head to clear the thought in my head. I grabbed my new friends. Well, come on out, guys, I said, throwing out my 2 new Pokemon. Vulpix, my new ice type, said as she took a stance on the ground. Jang, my dragon type, roared as he appeared before my friends, spooking Lily in the process. Guys, meet my friends. The blonde is Lily and the kid with green hair is Hao. Vulpix approached Lily and stared at her. Lily looked at her and gushed over her adorableness. She bent down and pet my ice type. Vulpix breathed her ice-cold breath at Lily, who shivered when the freezing air touched her, then laughed. I thought her laugh was cute. I shook my head again and rubbed my head. Jangmo, on the other hand, stared at Hao and growled. How Jangmo-o seems to want to challenge you, I said as Jangmo-o got into a battle stance. His nostrils flared and spit some purple draconic energy. Alright then, let's see how you handle this. Poplio, let's go. Hao partner Pokemon appeared and let out a sweet melodic cry that sounded like a song. I see that Poplio has gotten stronger. Hao nodded. I remember when I met Poplio, he was the one that when I woke up, went and got a nurse to check on me, and then Hao ran inside. Back to the battle and out of memory lane though, as Jangmo-o seemed to size up the seal Pokemon across from him. Poplio, start this battle with Bubble Beam. The sea lion Pokemon stood on its tail and fired a beam of bubbles at Jangmo-o. Jangmo-o dodged to the left and fired Dragon Rage at the ground at Poplio's feet. I told him as he followed the command almost to AT. He jumped over the attack and landed on the left side of the field, then fired a beam of purple draconic energy at the ground at Poplio's feet. Poplio, don't dodge it but fire a disarming voice at Jangmo-o. Jangmo-o dodged the attack without command and fired a focus blast at the sea lion Pokemon, who was unable to dodge. When the attack connected with Poplio, she seemed to be unable to stand anymore. That's the match, Poplio is unable to battle, Lily said, acting like a ref. That was pretty powerful, Ash. How did you know that Jangmo-o was that strong? Hao asked me as I returned to Jangmo. We trained all day today, I said in a funny voice. Oh, you think you're so cute, he said, trying not to laugh. Beach, he's adorable, Lily said in a relaxed voice. I do not own DBZ, a bridge that's Team 4-star, and we all walked back into the Poke Center laughing. Hello again, Ash, and I see that Hao is with you this time. I nod and we walk up to the desk and ask her to heal our Pokemon. We just finished a little battle outside and they need a little healing, I said, handing her Jangmo-o's Pokeball as Lily ran over Rowlet and Vulpix with her. Hey Ash, Vulpix was looking for you. Also, she seems really warm, she said, handing me the Ice Fox Pokemon. She was panting like she was getting too hot. I knew she would. I should have been watching her, but I wasn't. Nurse Joy, do you have some never melt ice I can give to her? I asked the nurse who passed us a tray for Pokeballs. She nodded and handed the jagged piece of ice to me. I quickly began to rub the ice around Vulpix's neck. This was the easiest way to get Vulpix cooled and to see how she was with being touched by people. When Vulpix was feeling better, I went to pass the never melt ice to Nurse Joy, only she shook her head and said, You are going to need it more than I do. Here, I will make it into a necklace for her. Nurse Joy says as she takes the jagged ice. I saw her drill a small hole into the ice before running a piece of wire through the hole. She then attached it to Vulpix's neck. After that we went and got something to eat. Lily and I grabbed some molasses and Hao grabbed 6 of the bigger malasadas. We just stared at him as he called out an Alolan Rattata and handed one to her. He also called out a Piku and handed one to him. The others he put into a case and stored in his bag. These we'll save for later, he says and closes his bag. We waited a short time, maybe 10 minutes, and the nurse called us to the front desk. We both picked up our Pokémon and left the center thanking Joy for all her help. Once outside we turned to each other and said our goodbyes. I had to get back to the cabin and they needed to get back to their homes as well. When I got back to my new home, Professor Kukui and Burnett were both working, so I went up to the loft and laid down for a couple hours, needed to rest and clear my head. I called out my Pokémon that could fit in the loft and laid on a futon that was set up for me. Jengo, keep an eye on Vulpix for me, I say as I drift off to sleep. As I open my eyes, I was back on the platform. Welcome, Chosen One. It seems that it is time for you to confront your repressed memories, Darkrai says as I look at the piece of glass. This was my only warning, because then I felt it coming. I looked down and saw the blade protruding from my chest again. I heard his laughter and saw his face in front of me as the blade started to drip blood onto the ground. My blood dripped onto the floor. Ash, you truly are dense if you thought I wouldn't come to Alola to finish what I started, he said in a voice that wasn't his. No, Max, this is wrong. You are in sin. No, right now this is only a dream. When I said that, the world seemed to pause for a second and everything calmed down. I was in my bed. Jangmo and Vulpix at my feet, Rowlet sleeping peacefully in my bag and Lily at my side. Wait, what? I looked to my left and saw that Lily had crawled into the bed with me and was hugging me close. I looked out my window and saw that the moon was out in its fullest form, but a shadow passed over the large celestial body. I slipped out of Lily's grasps and slipped outside. Chosen One, what are you doing up? A bat-like Pokémon said to me as it touched down next to me. I'm sorry, what is your name? I asked the Pokémon, who looked at me and smiled. My name is Lunala. I am an Alola legendary Pokémon and the legendary Pokémon of the moon. Father Arceus has told me your story, and I have to say that me and my brother Solgaleo are impressed and hope to one day join you as well as our sister Necrozma. But you must know that a great evil has arisen and intends to do harm to this region, and you are the only one that can stop them. Lunala told me as she looked up and said, now go to sleep, young trainer. Tomorrow is a bright day and the blonde in your bed will be very unhappy to wake with you not next to her. Lunala said, making a bright blue light flashing, and I fell into darkness. The next morning I was up bright and early and started my journey to compete in the Alola League. I snuck out of Lily's grasp and went outside to train. I remember seeing a cave a little east of the cabin earlier in the week, so I figured going there to train today wouldn't wake the neighbors and I could do some damage to the surrounding area. I ran to the cave with my new friends following close behind me. When we got to the cave, we started exploring, looking for anything that could help us on my journey. And there was Jangmo. The two of us had been training together since I caught him yesterday. After the match with Poplio, we seemed to grow stronger as a team, so I am letting him rest for today. Rowlet, on the other hand, was still in need of some training. Based on the information I had, he was still weaker than Hao's Poplio and needed to be ready for the first battle of the trial run. Rowlet, you need to start practicing how to use Energy Ball and Steel Wing. These moves should help us against Poplio, I told my avian friend as we continued to explore the cave. All in all, we found some nice stuff. I found a sharp beak which I gave to Rowlet as a little charm according to its description. It supposedly helps flying-type moves, making them stronger. We also found 3 potions, a shiny stone, and a poison barb. I wasn't sure if I would ever need that last thing, but I kept it anyway. We explored the cave a little more and found an opening in the side of a cave wall, and you could hear the sounds of nature and wild Pokémon, even the howling of a wolf-like Pokémon. Rowlet was the most eager to enter and flew ahead of me and my other Pokémon. I followed soon after with Vulpix and Jangmo, who were not far behind. When we got to through the hole, we saw Rowlet and a wolf pup-like Pokémon facing off. The Pokémon had brown fur around his body and head, and white fur for his tail and in his neck. His paws were darker than the rest of his fur and seemed to have mud on them. But the most unsettling thing were his eyes. They were an eerie green and seemed to hold its very soul. Rock! It howled as it rushed my friend, who fired a weak energy ball at the pup. Then my Pokédex buzzed. Rockruff, the puppy Pokémon, a rock type. It is a sociable Pokémon, but as it grows, its disposition gets wilder. If it begins to howl when the sun goes down, that is proof that it's close to evolving. It said that it leaves its trainer's side to evolve and returns again when evolved. It looked at me with its green eyes and then yipped and ran over to me and nudged my hand. "You want to come with me, don't you?" I asked him as he nudged my hand. "All right then, here you go," I said, tapping his head with my last Pokeball until I can get some more. After that I call him back out and we all started training. Rowlet, who was flying high in the clearing, allowing his feathers to gleam with silver hue. When he would try to throw the attack forward, however, it would either backfire or not work. He kept losing his focus and the energy he had built up. I knew what I had to work on with him. Jangmo kept training Focus Blast to make it stronger, while young Vulpix kept breathing powder snow on the ground and rolling around in it. Rockruff. Well, Rockruff was looking at a rock and seemed to be focused on the ground beneath it. I remember Grotle did this when he learned Rock Climb, so I guess he was trying to learn the same move. I walked over to him and looked at the rock too. "You want to become strong, don't you? You have something prove to either the world or someone close. I can help you do both, but you need to communicate to me what you need to do." He nodded to me and started to wag his tail as rocks started to glow around his tail. "Are you trying to use Rock Climb?" Rockruff barked, then growled as stones started to rise out of the ground. I smiled as this happened. He was strong, so a breeding move was in his armory. We trained for a few hours until I saw something out of the corner of my eyes. A pedestal with something sparkling in the afternoon sun. "What is that?" I asked myself as I began looking for a way to climb the wall. "Wait, this could be a good time to find out if he can use it," I said to myself as I called him over. "I want you to use Rock Climb and push me up to the weird gleaming thing that we saw on the pedestal." He nodded and stood on his back legs before making glowing white claws appear from his claws and slammed them on the ground. I nodded my thanks to him and he yipped at me when I patted his head in affection. When I got to the top, all of my Pokémon had already started to climb the now risen stone steps that Rockruff had helped create. I would have to give them some treats later, but for now curiosity was getting the better of me. When we got to the top, all of them were panting, so that just meant I was going to have to do some stamina training later. "Alright guys, take a break, I will look around and see what that gleaming was," I say to them as they all collapsed except for Rockruff, who was laying down in the shade of some stones on the wall. As I walked around, I started to see areas of rock that had been chipped or broken. Almost like something had landed here. But there was also proof that a battle took place here, as scorch marks from electricity and rocks that were sliced in half smoothly. There was also proof of a dragon nearby, as a meteor shard was present in the ground. Then I heard a sound just around the corner. I knew it was a Pokémon because it was too deep to be human and definitely too deep to be anything the size of my Pokémon. So what was it? When I turned a corner, I saw what I was looking for. There was a pedestal with a weird rhombus-shaped crystal in a hole, and next to the pedestal was a Pokémon that was injured and laying on the ground. It seemed to be damaged and covered in bruises. "Are you alive there, friend?" I asked the Pokémon that was obviously too hurt to move, let alone attack me. As it began to move and opened its eyes. "Beebzgd." It screamed when it saw me and looked me dead in the eye. "Easy, I am not going to hurt you, I want to help you." It calmed down a little bit. It seemed ready to fight me if necessary. It went to stand only to fall once again. When it couldn't stand, it simply extended its clawed hand and covered the pedestal. It seemed to want to guard it, like it was its life or something. It obviously was not a normal species of Pokémon and seemed to distrust humans, with rainbow-colored eyes gleaming with hope and pain. Then when it saw my wrist, it actually smiled, or at least seemed to smile as it stared at my Z-ring. It removed its arm from the pedestal and allowed me to get a better view. It was the Flyinium Z crystal. So you understand that I am not an enemy to Pokémon, just a lost soul just like you by the looks of it. It moved what I thought was its head in a nodding motion. "Chosen one, I see you have met Necrozma and I can smell my other sister, Lunala on you, which means you have met her as well. I heard a deep male voice say behind me. I turned and saw a lion-like Pokémon, so I guessed it had to be Solgaleo, the legendary Pokémon of the sun. Solgaleo, is that you, my old friend? How long has it been? 2, 3 centuries, how are you? I heard a wiser feminine voice say. Chosen one, so Arceus has finally sent me help, thank you, Father. The voice said as the Pokémon now identifies as Necrozma tried to stand only for it to need Solgaleo to stay balanced. Chosen one, you have indeed proven that you are worthy of your Z-ring and the Z-crystal in the pedestal. Simply touch the crystal and it shall become yours. Necrozma said as Solgaleo helped her up and the two floated away. I walked over to the pedestal and touched the crystal. It floated out of the pedestal and rested in my hand. When it landed in my hand, I looked at it more carefully. It was a teal blue with a feather at its center. What did Kukui call the flying type Z-move? Maybe it can help me tomorrow. I say, taking the crystal and putting it on my Z-ring. I had to find out if any of my Pokémon have an attack that can be used as the substitute for this. Until then it can stay on the ring. I walked back to where my Pokémon were and gathered them up. Ash, are you in here? I hear Burnett call out. Rockruff, I need you to let her know I am here. All of you, I need your help really quickly. Use an attack and get her attention for me. My Pokémon nodded and started firing ranged attacks to help get my mom's attention. When she finally looked up, I waved to her. She waved back and seemed to yell something into the caves below us. I ran down the rock climb steps, returning my Pokémon when I got to them. When I got to the bottom of the steps, I was tackled into a hug by a blonde missile. Don't leave me again, she said to me as she quivered. Wow, Lily, are you trying to tell him you like him? How, said as she pulled me tighter and began to sob into my chest. She nods against my chest as she begins to quiver again in response to something. She was almost like a flower in the wind. Now hold up, I can guarantee what you're thinking is this is some kind of Stockholm syndrome, but it's not. It's more of a nightingale effect, but she didn't nurse me back to health. We just liked each other and so it turned into this. But at the same time it felt right, you know, like it was meant to be. Not only that, but I liked her too. Over the past 3 months, Lily and I have gotten to know each other really well. She helped me get over my anger towards the traitors and has shown me the beauty of forgiveness. So I took a shot in the dark and hoped it hit. Lily, I like you too, I say to her as she hugs me closer. But today is the day my Alolan journey starts, I said and held my words for dramatic effect. And because of that, I would like you to come with me, I say to hear her squeals of happiness and jump around. For a moment the world seemed to right itself. But of course life is only a giant but train wreck with brief moments of happiness. Unfortunately, it was now time to return to our regularly scheduled program. And its name is Gary Mother FNG Oak. Looks like Ashy has a girlfriend, who'd have thought? His annoying voice said behind me. I tensed and Lily started to rub my back to try and calm me down. A light blue glow surrounded me and I felt patience course through me. So ignoring me, your childhood rival and friend. I was getting angrier. Lily, I want you to let me go and head to the lab. Only return when you think I have calmed down, I whisper in her ear. She nods and runs off, dragging Burnett with her. So what do you want from me now? Oh wait, let me guess, your grandfather wants me to return. No wait, you want my new Pokémon? Oh no wait, I have it. You want me to stop being a trainer as well? I say, grab a Pokeball and get into a battle-ready stance. The last one is correct. You're not smart or strong enough to be a trainer. I smirk at this as he stopped being a trainer after the Silver Conference because I defeated him. One match before we go, and since you guys are so confident you can beat me, then I will use only my Alola team. You win, I go back to Kanto and revoke my license permanently even though I am no longer a citizen there. I win, you go back to Kanto returning the Pokemon you have stolen from me, and you give a warning to the other traders, tell them where I am and give them the same warning I have given you. If you want me back, you will have to battle me or face me in the Alola League. I tell him as my aura flared to life. I accept these terms. Alakazam, let's go, Gary said, throwing out his Psychic-type Pokemon. Rockruff, dance in the dirt, I say as I throw my Pokeball out. So, a Rock-type, alright fine, Alakazam uses grass knot to knock that little dog out. Rockruff uses rock climb to dodge, then uses bite to attack Alakazam from behind. Rockruff followed my orders and used rock climb to disrupt the grass knot, then bit Alakazam on the arm. Alakazam shakes him off and uses Psychic to throw him against the wall. Gary said as Alakazam did what he was told and even continued to do so. Rockruff began to whimper and cry out in pain as Alakazam continued to slam Rockruff into the wall of the cavern. Gary, he has had enough. I surrender, just let me say goodbye. He nodded as I went over to Rockruff, who was breathing heavily and whimpering in pain. Sorry my friend, I can't keep training you. I am going to give you to Lily to keep her safe until my return. I say as my aura springs to life. The regular blue and light blue mixing together, repairing the wounda and damage on Rockruff. I grabbed my stuff from the cavern and walked out of the cave with Gary not far behind me. When we got back to the cabin, Kukui saw my sad face and he realized what happened. I am sorry, I have to go now. I say as I passed my trainer's belt and Pokeballs to Lily. She began to tear up, but Kukui was angry. Now you listen here, son. This child is Ash Satoshi Kukui. He is my son and a citizen of Alola region, which means that he can only leave with parental permission, which he does not have. Also, for the information of you and those despicable traitors he once called friends, his mother signed a paper saying that he was no longer hers and we adopted him. So you can leave and never return to the Alola region unless invited by a citizen. I smiled as I hugged him. They're right, you know, we betrayed you. Maybe you are smart enough to be a trainer, you just need to get a little stronger. Gary says and I smile. He was still a friend. This was just a facade to find out if I was okay. This is going to be a good life for you, Ash. You being a trainer, that would be good for you, I can see that now. He says, pulling out a box with what looked like 40 Pokeballs in it. I am sorry. I was unable to get them all before they grabbed them. These are your Pokemon I was able to save. Gary says. The traitors had my other Pokemon, and I needed to get them back. The Pokemon consist of your Mook, all 30 of your Tauros, your Meganium, Infernape, Torterra, and your Sceptile. Gary said, passing me the case that housed 35 Pokeballs, and I passed it to Kukui. Now Gary, I forgive you and maybe one day we could be friends, but what you did hurt me dearly. But tell the others where I am and what I am after and doing. Tell them I will be waiting for them, growing stronger, and I expect to see them the day of the Alola Champions Tournament. Gary nodded and called out his Pidgeot, and he took off into the brilliant blue sky. Now Ash, be prepared, tomorrow you are heading to your first trial. I nodded and Lily hugged me again and kissed my cheek. 2 traitors down, 12 to go. In a den somewhere in the trial cave. We start today on the rocky terrain of Route 3 in Alola region. This is where we see a small hole with a Pikachu drawn above the entrance. The drawing was carved into the stone, but it definitely was not human-made. In the den there were pictures of Pikachu and a trainer with a gunshot wound in the chest. There was a ragged cloaked Pokemon, with star-shaped eyes and a wooden tail sticking out the back of its ragged costume. There are pictures of trainers and people the Pokemon has hand-drawn. The Pokemon was looking at a trainer with blood seeping from his chest. A kid in a green shirt holding the knife was making the Pokemon mad at the pictures and pointing its claws. Its anger still apparent and a dark aura radiating off said claw. Q. The ragged Pokemon says as he looks out the den entrance and stares into nothing. Well, it seemed like nothing to me and you, but the Pokemon was seeing something. Maybe it was a dreary future or a sad past, but nothing was ever happy with this Pokemon. The trainers who it lost and the people who have died from seeing his true form. It made it sad and scared. Lily POV. My dream started in the ocean. Deep in the ocean, the only light coming from a dragonic being slightly floating in the darkness. Its blue eyes glow, releasing a shining blue light that lights up the area around us. The beautiful being with silver scaly-like skin moved with the current and waves bobbing up and down. It seems to be asleep, not even flinching when being moved. The waters of the ocean seemed to obey this being, letting the being sleep in peace, seeming to wait for a signal from an outside source. This Pokemon looked familiar. I had seen this being before. Was it a Pokemon, an Ultra Beast perhaps? I knew I had seen it somewhere, but where? Young child, you seem to know my chosen one. It spoke to me telepathically like I knew who its chosen one was. But I don't know what this being is or even by chance who its chosen one was. If Ash is your chosen one, then yes. But may I ask your name? You look familiar to me, I say as the Pokemon laughs. Follow the music, the notes will reveal me to you. The world once turned to Ash and now Ash turns to the sea. The Pokemon said and I woke up. I woke up to the sound of a flute. It was playing a soothing sound that seemed to speak a story, Lugia's song, from the movie. It was nighttime, that was sure, but there was a sea-green glow to the landscape. That song I know. I say to myself as it continues and I follow it. It felt almost like the ground was responding to the song. I felt vibrations under my feet even from inside the house. I walked outside and saw Ash on the beach standing with a black cloak on. He had a silver flute in his hands and was playing the instrument from memory. He was playing the sweet tune, the one that calmed the world and ocean around us. He had a silver feather, they gleamed in the moonlight and the moonlight reflected off them from around his neck. They were connected to a chain with a blue bell that looked like the deep sea bell from the Johto region. The song, I finally knew how I knew it. Ash knew it note for note, and that's how I started to realize how I recognized it. It was on the news about 6 years ago, when the 3 legendary titans were awakened and the world was fated to end. Then the world was about to end and a child saved it all. An 11-year-old child. And thus the world turns to Ash. A voice says in my head, "You are the correct child." The song is the same as the one from 6 years ago. He was the one who saved the world. And he did it even more after that incident. He met every legendary, saved just as many. The voice from before said, Ash was our savior. No wonder the Tapus saw him worthy of the Z-ring. He never told us. He never told me. I walked over and stood behind him a bit as the song continued. He continued to play the song, and as he got closer to the end the song got quieter. So I ran and hid behind some bushes in case something were to happen. Then something in the sea began to rise up and let off a cry of power. The water beneath the being began to bubble and seemed to breath. Then the glow disappeared and the only sound was the flute. The water seemed to obey the being almost like he was controlling it. Chosen one. It said facing Ash, and Ash bowed. He had stopped playing the flute, setting it down next to him. The flute was beautiful, made of silver and what looked like gold. On it was a great silver feather that gleamed in the moonlight. Ash also seemed to be glowing slightly. A pale blue like when I had touched him the first time, when he had faced Gary. "Hi Lugia," was all Ash said as he began to tear up. "Chosen one, what is wrong? Why are you crying?" The Pokemon now identified as Lugia said to Ash as he stood up. "They betrayed me, old friend, and you all saved me, helped me even. Yet there is nothing for me to do in return." Ash said to the beautiful creature before us. "I just wanted to say thank you for that." Lugia nodded and then looked at me and smiled. "You're not alone anymore, Ash. You have a beautiful girl in love with you and you love her. You made love out of hatred and power out of loss. You made friends who pulled you from the darkness of life and made you new. How and Lily and more on the way. You also have your friends from all over the world. Rivals that didn't leave you, Bianca from Alto Mare in Johto. And even more in between." Ash seemed to be frozen right then and there. "Lugia, there is one here I want you to meet," Ash said to the being as I walked out of the bushes and stood next to him. "She's a keeper, chosen one. Oh, and before I forget, Arceus told me to give you a message if I ever saw you. The keeper of the brooklet and the guard of the jungle shall be with a child named for a tree. He also told me to tell you to watch out for the other legends. They are ready to join you for your deeds you helped them with." Ash looked shocked and was about to protest, but Lugia sank back into the water. "Ash, who are you really?" I ask him as he turns towards me. 16 missing trainers in 2011, the world saved, 2012, and many more like it all over the world. Look up world's most mysterious events in the past decade and you will find pictures of me with legendaries the world over," he said as he clipped the silver feathers to his hoodie. When I caught a glimpse of what was in the hoodie's inner collar, I saw a green feather and a rainbow-colored feather. "Come on, let's head back to the house," he said, picking me up and carrying me like a new bride back to the cabin. Me to his room and laid me down on the bed. I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I knew it was morning and we were back in his bed with the young Vulpix on my chest. Ash POV. What Lugia said to me last night made me think. I remember when I studied the map of Melee, I don't remember a brooklet or a jungle anywhere. Must be on a different island, but first it's trial day. I walked outside to see an avian Pokémon sitting on the banister. The Pokémon was a woodpecker by the looks of its beak. It had a black feathered body with a white underbelly. It had green eyes and a pink striped plumage on his head. Dexter, what is this Pokémon called? I asked for my Pokédex. Pikipek the woodpecker Pokémon. A flying normal type, these Pokémon drill holes in trees and store food in the holes. They also like small, glittering objects and will tuck them away in their food stores, too. It's often said, something lost, something missed, check inside the Pikipek nest. Dexter said, chirping out information about the Pokémon before me. What's up, little one, or are you the bird that Professor talked about with me yesterday? The Pikipek made a tweeting noise, then tapped a Pokeball and was SED in. Well, that happened. I said as I picked up the Pokeball after it pinged. Well, the little one finally chose a trainer. Burnett said as she walked out on the porch for her morning jog. I was going to introduce you to and see what she would do, but it looks like she answered my question. She never hid her curiosity towards trainers, and I was curious what would happen if a trainer approached her. Burnett said as she took the Pokeball from me and called out the little one. So you wanted to join him? You were waiting for a trainer to choose you, weren't you? The Pikipek looked at me, then nodded its head and flew onto my shoulder. So you know something we don't. Maybe you will move on to greatness. Burnett said and passed me the Pokeball again. Just be careful, she can be curious about the smallest things and is drawn to anything shiny. She is also very curious about me and your dad. We learned over the years that we have been married. Burnett said as the Pikipek flew to her and rested on top of her head. I think it's time that I learned everyone's moves. I say, calling everyone out. They all tackled me to the ground and hugged me. Pikipek was even in the hug. She used her wings to hug me around the neck, which tickled a little bit. Dexter, I need to know what moves everyone knows, so tell me the moves for Rowlet, Pikipek, Jangmo-o, Vulpix, and Rockruff. Alright, Rowlet, Leafage, Tackle, Growl, Razor Leaf, Aerial Ace, and Air Cutter, Steel Wing, Energy Ball. Egg Move, Ominous Wind, and Spite. Pikipek, Quick Attack, Aerial Ace, Air Cutter, Wing Attack, Flame Charge. Egg Move, Boom Burst, Mirror Move. Not unlocked. Rockruff, Rock Throw, Rock Tomb, Tackle, Leer, Bite Rock Climb. Egg Moves, Fire Fong, Thunder Fong. Jangmo-o, Dragon Rage, Focus Blast, Dragon Pulse, Focus Punch, Aerial Ace. Egg Moves, Draco Meteor. Not unlocked. Vulpix, Blizzard, Dazzling Gleam, Ice Beam. Egg Move, Moonblast. Not unlocked. Thank you, Dexter. I say as the 5 of them sit on the beach. I think for my first trial I will bring Rockruff, Rowlet, and Jangmo-o because I haven't had a chance to bond with Pikipek yet and Vulpix is still far too young. They all nodded and I returned the 2 I wasn't using and handed them to Burnett, telling her to keep them safe for me until I got back. Then I left. Halfway up Route 1, Lily and Hal met up with me and decided to come with me, and we tackled our biggest challenge today. Going through the city. Let's start with the fact that the city was about 3 miles long. However, versus some of the other cities I have traveled through, it was nicer, calmer, quieter, and the people were nicer. Then there were the stores. Burnett ended up spotting us halfway down the strip. She talked about how I needed new clothes cause the old ones were starting to get a little small. With the mention of this, Lily grabbed my arms and dragged me to the mall. We spent 3 hours looking for clothes for me because Lily couldn't decide on one outfit. When we finally got to the route, we were all so tired that we went to the Poke Center and took a nap. When we woke up, we got our stuff together and left. We had a hill to climb and it was pretty steep. We also met new trainers who wanted to walk with us to the trial site. So what are your guys' names? We asked the 2. You can call us Sun and Moon, but our real names are Mason and Troy. The one with black hair and brown eyes said. He was pale but not too light-complected. The other was tan with blonde hair and blue eyes that were full of mirth. So, Mason, why do they call you Moon? They don't call me son because I am the opposite of what people think, same with my brother. He is moon because he prefers ice and ghost types, where I as sun prefer fire and grass types. But we train all types. Mason explains to us as we got to Route 2 and see the trial captain waiting for us. Ah, the trial goers, welcome to the trial. The kid said as he flicked his pink hair out of his face. Now Moon, since you won the coin toss, how about you go first? He nodded and walked into the cave. He was a seasoned newbie. You could tell he had the confident walk and the even more confident smirk on his face. When he entered the cave, Elima blocked us from entering. Only one at a time may enter the cave, but don't worry, there are enough totem Pokemon for all of you to take on. He said to us. An hour later, Moon came back. He was holding the crystal in his left hand as his right was covered in ice. He also had cut marks, was shaken from something, and he seemed to be in shock. His clothes were either burned or were too damp and seemed to be weighing him down. Why did you not warn me about this? There was so much ice thrown at me. And that DMN grass type kept healing. Why did you do this to me? He asked, and I could tell he was sad. Moon, what Pokemon was your trial Pokemon that you had that many attacks thrown your way? There were so many elements. Why was he the totem Pokemon? I am going to have PTSD for my entire life. He said to us as we all backed away from him. All right, next person. Time skip, just wanted to add this for fun. Ash POV. All right, Ash, go ahead, this is your turn. Judging from all the damage you all had, the only left is Gunshiz, the strongest, by himself, totem Pokemon. He usually works alone, so you only need 2 Pokemon for the trial. Elima said to me as I was allowed to walk into the cave. I should have practiced more because I was not ready for the beast of a Pokemon that appeared before me. Elima wasn't wrong about this Pokemon. It worked alone and seemed to have a high attack power. All right, Rowlet and Jangmo-o, take the stage. I said, trying a new battle signal out. The totem moved around the battlefield like he was a snake with legs. Rocks were not an issue to this Pokemon. Rowlet stealth mode and take to the sky. He nodded and flew up. Jangmo-o, try to use that aura trick I taught you and see where Gunshiz is going to be. I told my dragon friend, who nodded and started to shake his scales that started to glow blue. No, not charging scales, I will figure out how to represent them later. His head started to move, pointing in the direction that Gunshiz was. Rowlet followed Jangmo-o's head and tried to take Gunshiz by surprise. Rowlet seemed to disappear from view, flying through the air without making a sound. Jangmo-o time to take control, use Focus Blast and start bringing out Gunshiz hiding places. Jangmo-o fired ball of blue energy at the rocks that blocked their paths and into holes in the wall, bringing the Gunshiz out of hiding and into the middle of the field. Rowlet, it's time. My owl Pokemon nodded and flew down next to me. Here we go. I yell out and bring out my Z-ring. Just like the professor taught us, cross over the chest. When I got into this position, Rowlet and Jangmo-o followed, crossing their arms across their chest. Arms at the side, cross in front. Flap arms like wings, crouch down and hug legs in a fetal position. Follow through all the way up and point fist to the ceiling. Call out the name of the attack. Supersonic Sky Strike. And let the Pokemon do the rest. I say as I go over the notes Kukui gave me on the flying type Z move. Jangmo-o and Rowlet flew up and seemed to disappear, then came flying back down and caused a crater when they connected with Gunshiz. Gunshiz was at the center of the crater, knocked out. But me and my Pokemon were panting and barely standing. Ash, the crystal, it didn't disappear. You used your first Z move. Lily said, running over to me as I left the cave with the Gunshiz helping me. It handed me 3 rhombus-shaped crystals and ran back into the cave. Well done, Ash, you have passed your first trial, but the next thing is against the Kahuna. Halu is not a person to mess with and take lightly. I would suggest that you train and train hard. We all nodded and went to the Poke Center to heal our Pokemon. Elima came with us in case there was something more wrong with me besides exhaustion. Then he saw the other crystal the Gunshiz gave me. Wait, is that the Snorlium Z crystal? That is rare, usually you get that from an Snorlax on Pony. And no matter when you are ready, I will teach you how to use it. Elima said to me as I returned my Pokemon. Nurse Joy had sent them in here after I healed up. The Poke Center released me after declaring I was just exhausted, but I was still feeling tired and I could barely walk, so Moon helped me to the motel down the street. Ash, that was intense. No wonder you are so tired. 2 Pokémon, 1 Z-move that hasn't been done since Z-moves first appeared, and that was only because they were fighting Ultra Beast. Moon said as he helped me to a bed and I laid down. Just relax and get some sleep. He told me as he left the room. I followed what he told me and fell asleep wondering what to do when it came time to battle the kahuna. I would be ready. Lily POV, after the events of the trial. I was surprised by how well Ash did on his trial. Most new trainers have a really hard time on Gumshoes and even harder time getting through the cave. But those are the ones that do not get a hold of a fighting type such as Crabrawler or Makuhita. But Ash didn't have them. He had Jangmo-o and Rowlet, and I was unclear of Jangmo-o's moves. But now I was in his room alone, with him lying there being all cute. Since we started dating, I noticed that every little thing that was cute about him. The way he drooled in his sleep, the way he ran into danger for this world and his friends. Although that was really hot when he did that. But then I thought about the lines Lugia said. The keeper of the brooklet, and the guardian of the jungle, shall be with the child named for a tree. The only thing I could think was that 2 more girls were going to be with Ash. I was actually fine with that, and not for the reasons you think. I have always been willing to share my things. There was my boyfriend in high school, but then that turned into a girl stealing him away from me. Do you mean it how? Yes, me and Hao had a thing in grade school, but he was stolen by this girl named Mina only for her to go missing a week before graduation. But that was a year ago. I was still fine with sharing Ash cause I knew he would spend time with all of us equally. Speaking of the devil, I checked him and kissed him on the cheek as I left. I was sad, but I knew if I didn't I would never be walking out of the room. Just a mild case of exhaustion. The doctor said to me as I walked into the hallway. Thank you, doctor, can I leave him here and be sure he is safe? Moon and Hao nodded and Sun walked with me out. We were going to get some supplies and something to eat for all of us. The next morning we were all outside and the thoughts of sharing Ash came back to my mind. I was thinking about what the other girls might look like. The keeper of the brooklet, she would probably have natural blue hair. Specialize in water-type Pokémon, probably be obsessed with finding a legendary Pokémon like Lugia. She would have blue eyes and wear a one-piece under her clothes in case she ever wanted to go for a swim. The guardian of the jungle. She would probably be willing to get down and dirty in the mud. She would have long green hair and jungle green eyes. Specialize in grass types for sure. She would probably love to cook as the jungle is a place needed for survival, so you would have to learn to cook for sure. The more I thought about it, the more I wanted it to happen. I wanted to hurry up and meet these girls. I needed other girls around to help me with Ash and Hao. Hao because he was like a child in an adult skin. Lily, you there? I hear Ash's voice say and I snap back to reality. Yeah, I'm here, coming. I realized I had fallen behind. Hao and Ash were already halfway up Route Ash POV. We were halfway up Route 3, when I realized Lily was not with us. Lily, you coming or what? I yell back to her as she climbs up a little faster now that I had her attention. Yeah, I'm here, coming. Then she ran up the hill and met up with me and Hao. Sun and Moon stayed back to do something about training. But I think that they just wanted to capture new Pokémon. They now knew I was strong, and if we were going to be rivals then they needed to get stronger. We walked for about 10 minutes when out of nowhere this crab-like Pokémon appeared, skated past us. Hey, isn't that a Crabrawler? Hao asks as it turns towards us. Crab. It growled out and fired a bubble beam at us. However, the attack never connected. A ragged Pokémon with a shadowed claw appeared and made a green barrier in front of us, taking the blunt of the attack. Q. The Pokémon said in defiance to the crab Pokémon. Brawl. Crabrawler said back. They stared at each other and we just snuck around them. The ragged Pokémon moved with us, keeping guard with its small body. Dexter, who is this Pokémon? Mimikyu, the disguise Pokémon. A ghost fairy type. Mimikyu lives its life completely covered by its cloth and is always hidden. People believe that anybody who sees its true form beneath the cloth will be stricken with a mysterious illness. People in the Alola region are convinced that you must never try to peek beneath its covering. Mimikyu's health fails when it's bathed in the rays of the sun, so it prefers to stick to dark places. It's rumored that the reason it covers itself with a cloth is to avoid sunlight. Mimikyu has the disguise ability, a new ability that no Pokémon has ever before possessed. The disguise ability allows it to escape damage from an enemy's attack just one time, and then its appearance changes. My Pokédex chimed letting me know what this Pokémon is and what it had for an ability. How, you and Lily need to get down the rest of the route. I know this is cliché, but by the looks of him, Crabrawler is a fighting type and they have a lot of physical power. They both nodded and Hao called out his Poplio who knew Protect, and this was in case the Crabrawler changed targets. Alright Mimikyu, I think to myself, keeping the Crabrawler focused on me. I reach for a couple of empty Pokeballs silently with one hand, while on the other hand I grabbed Pikipek and Rowlet's Pokeball. Give Mimikyu a hand, Rowlet, Pikipek, I say, calling out my avian Pokemon. Q, Mimikyu said and stood next to my Pokemon. Rowlet Ominous Wind, Pikipek Aerial Ace. I call to my Pokemon who follow the orders and fire the respective attacks at the crab Pokemon as Mimikyu fires what I assume was a Shadow Claw at the helpless Pokemon. When the attacks stopped, the Crabrawler was barely standing but was not going to give up and stood strong once more only to collapse to the ground. Q. Mimikyu nodded to the crab as I pulled out 2 empty Pokeballs. I hate doing this, but you need medical help and maybe a trainer would also be good for you. They could help you understand the idea of being friendly towards all until they show you they are aggressive. Maybe even get you to understand the idea of bonding. I say to the Crabrawler as I tap him with a Pokeball. And as for you Mimikyu, you could be a useful friend to me. If you want I can take you with me or you can stay out here in the wild. I will leave this Pokeball with you. It is inactive and won't catch you if you touch the button. But the choice is yours. I say, passing him the ball, and he takes it into his hand. Now you saw where those 2 ran off to, right? I live near there in a cabin by the sea. If you want to find me, just go to that cabin. I tell the Pokemon as I walk away. 2 days later, it was time for me to get ready for the battle against the Kahuna. I had been training non-stop with Rowlet, Pikipek, and Vulpix. Now you 3 are my best shot to win here. I tell my 3 Pokemon as they all nod and get into their battle stance. Ash, this little one wanted to talk to you, Lily said as she hands me a rag doll-looking Pokemon. Mimikyu, have you made your decision? I say as I step toward Lily, who passed me Mimikyu. Mimikyu then proceeded to sit on my shoulder and just stay there. I take it as you want to come with me. He nodded from my shoulder and so I pulled out a friend ball and showed it to him. This Mimikyu was a present from a friend of mine in Johto named Lyra. This Pokeball is called a friend ball and it will help me make you more friendly towards me. We can't have you going into a rage and harmonize with me, I say as I pull out the ball. It is made from a delicious fruit in Johto called apricorns. The ball itself had a green upper casing with red, orange, and yellow petal designs on it. Its lower casings were white like a normal Pokeball. Thank you. I hear the shaky voice of Mimikyu as he touches it with his claw. The Pokemon was SE in the ball with a green beam of energy, and as it shook, small seeds would be spat out of the little sacks on the top. The ball clicked and I picked it up. Alright, I caught a Mimikyu. Rowlet and Crabrawler ran over to me and made excited noises. Ash, these seeds, we should plant them and see if we can get apricorns here and make some more of those Pokeballs for your friends. I nodded and picked up the seeds and put them in my bag as well as Mimikyu's Pokeball. I'll call him back out when we get back to the lab, I say to her, and we take the seeds back. Come back out, bud. The ball popped open and revealed that the ball had done his job and made Mimikyu more friendly towards me, but he seemed also more confused. I bet you're looking for either my other Pokemon or that Crabrawler that attacked me yesterday, and I have to say that you and him have a lot in common now. Mimikyu smiled and began to look around. Well, they are resting inside for the day. We have a big battle tonight and you all bed your rest. He nodded and I pulled out a poke bean that I got from a guy with a straw hat. I bet you're a little hungry too here, so eat up. I may need your help today, I say, and he nods and munches down on the bean. A couple of hours later, we are standing in an arena facing an older man in a yellow robe and blue shorts. He may have been old, I tell myself, but he must have some power if he is the island Kahuna. Alright Ash, since you went last on the trail, you are lady here, the Kahuna said to me. So welcome to your Kahuna fight with Kahuna Halu. The man now identified as Halu said to me. Here we go Makuhita. Halu said with such command it would make my toros flinch. Vulpix, don't fail me now. I say throwing my youngest member out. Makuhita starts things off with Force Palm. Halu said like he knew I would start with an ice type. Vulpix, don't be afraid, distract him with Dazzling Gleam then, follow it up with Moonblast. I say to her as she fires off the too powerful attack causing Makuhita to flinch back when the Dazzling Gleam goes off. Vulpix then fired a ball of pink energy at the Guts Pokémon. There was a big explosion, then everything was quiet. There was a silence, then Makuhita appeared from the smoke taking 2 steps before falling to the ground. Makuhita is unable to battle, the winner is Vulpix. The ref called as we both returned our Pokémon. Alright Ash, way to go. 2 more to go. Lily shouts to me. She is riled up and you could hear it in her voice. Pikipek takes flight. I say as I think back to my Unova journey and the gym leader Skyla, who was a high-spirited girl. This is for you Skyla. I say to myself. Crabrawler, time for us to shine. The crab Pokémon appeared on the field. Don't waste time Pikipek, take to the air and use Peck. My friend followed the order and took off towards the crab Pokémon. Use Ice Beam Crabrawler to bring him down. Halu said, but what I said next shocked everyone. Pikipek, use his Ice Beam against him like I taught you to gather the energy around you by letting it hit you. My friend without question or hesitation followed the order and caught the energy in his beak and kept flying towards the crab Pokémon, then mid-flight began to spin. Pikipek became a missile that eventually knocked Crabrawler out. Crabrawler is forfeited due to injuries. Pikipek wins by default. The ref said, and I knew this was the battle that would bring out my true power. Hariyama, it's a trial. The hand Pokémon appeared in front of me, and let me just say it was a little intimidating. We don't intimidate easily. Mimikyu takes the stage. I say, throwing my new friend forward. Q. It said as it stared at the Hariyama and got into a battle stance. Hariyama Thunder Punch tries to break that disguise. Halu said as his Pokémon lined up with Mimikyu. Mimikyu, wait until he's 3 feet away, then use Shadow Claw to block the punch, then use Dazzling Gleam. I told my partner. He did as he was told. Blocked the Thunder Punch by using Shadow Claw, nullifies the thunder, and so the attack is just a punch. Then Dazzling Gleam happened. Hariyama backed off due to the blinding light. Finish this Mimikyu, use Dazzling Gleam. Mimikyu followed the order and a blinding light surrounded the battlefield, and all I could hear was the sound of the hand Pokémon crying out in pain. Hariyama has fainted. This trial battle is over. Ash Ketchum has won the battle. I was breathing heavily as I returned to Mimikyu. I hadn't felt a battle like this since my last battle with Elan, hopefully spelt that right, the only friendly rival I had left in Kalos. Even Sawyer, the kid with the Sceptile, had left me to die. But this battle took all my spirit and soul. It felt great. Ash Ketchum as Kahuna of Melee Melee Island, I present you with this Phytinium Z. To perform this move, follow these steps. He then made several punches that were also spun. Then he lifted his foot off the ground and punched the air. This move is called all-out pummeling and can be paired with any fighting type move. I nodded my thanks for the battle and the crystal and walked away towards Lily. After my battle with the Kahuna, Halu shouted to start the festival, and there was a big tournament that the trial goers were allowed to participate in, but I said no because I needed some rest. But in reality I wanted to talk to my beautiful girlfriend. That word still felt weird leaving my mouth or running through my head when it was paired with the word my. When I finally found Lily, she was standing by the sea. Hey beautiful, what's up? I say, sneaking up behind her. Not much, just wondering if you will play his song again. She said to me, snuggling into my chest. So I pulled out my flute and began to play. I didn't have the bell or the feather though, so Lugia did not appear. After the song was over, I turned to her and made a serious face. Lily, as you know, I have feelings for you. We have now been dating 2 months and I have decided to travel all of Alola, and that would not be exciting without you by my side. Please journey with me. Help me find my missing pieces across this region and the Z crystals that allow me to unlock the power within. That call to the power within all beings. I say to her as she smiles at me. I think I would like that. She said to me, kissing my lips. I smiled and picked her, carrying her back to the festival bridal style. The two of us were smiling. Chapter 4, Trader's Return, calling to love's clear missing parts. Outside the house of Kalos Queen, a small white jellyfish Pokémon was watching from a window. It was watching the now-grown Serena as she walked around her room. A wispy sound escapes from the monster almost telepathically. It then flickers before vanishing as the woman looks out her window. Must have been the wind, she says as she ducks back into the window, closing the window and turning the light off in the room. But then just as she closes the door, the white creature appears again, only becoming a little girl with white long hair, who is floating just off the ground. It whispers as it moves through the door. Serena POV 1 week later. Diary activate, new entry. I say as I place the small device on my desk. I had begun to keep notes on myself since the betrayal, since the nightmares started. I was so happy to be rid of the failure known as Ash Ketchum. He was holding me back from my dream to be Kalos Queen. I began to tell my electronic diary. You are talking to the current Kalos Queen, I said as I began to look at my shelf of rewards. On it was my keychain with 9 keys on it. There was also the Queen Cup trophy with its pink ribbon on it. And from my time in Johto, I am now the Johto Grand Festival winner. I say as I look down a shelf at my winning team. With Ash's Pokemon, I was undefeated throughout the region. Venusaur is great with his control over Solar Beam and, when he learned how to use it, Sunny Day combos. Feraligatr loves to dance, and when I fused that dancing with Surf, I was able to make the effect of him walking on water like a Surskit, although the two of them still don't willingly listen to me. I said as I began to have flashbacks to Ash and our journey through Kalos. Halucha still won't listen because he is old enough to know what happened, and that there is no way Ash would just abandon his Pokemon. In fact, all of the Pokemon I have of Ash's that others pass to me to use how I see fit, and so I have been training them to be my contest team. I say as I pick up the 4th Pokeball in my team. Oshawott finally evolved to its final form. But that was only to survive a hit that I was too stupid to see, that could have killed the small Pokemon. He then did it again to spite me because I entered a contest for Duat and Oshawott only, and as a Samurott he couldn't be entered. I say as I get angry with myself. His Pokemon were a lot stronger than any of us realized, and the fact that he never used them outside of their regions was actually a smart move. No trainer would have stood a chance in Kalos if he had used any of his old team. Bizel and Levany still don't know how to feel about me, as I tend to train them like Ash would. And in all honesty, I miss Ash. I have been lying to myself and those that will one day hear this. Ash Ketchum could have made it to True Master if we hadn't ended his story. It was too short and we wasted a perfectly good trainer, I say as I put the Pokeballs back. I need redemption, but how do I do this if he is dead? I say as I turn off the recorder. As I remove the tape and put it in a safe, I had to keep it safe. There were a few others with it, all tapes I had recorded in case I ever decided to move on. Why did you do it, Serena? Why? I hear Ash say to me as I turn around to see a nightmarish form of Ash. His once amber eyes were now a midnight red, stared at me. I couldn't have done anything, you were the one that fooled around in the leagues and lost. I said back. Ash said nothing at first, but then a hollow sound escaped his lips. It was like laughter. But you could have stopped him. He pointed to his chest, and where his heart once was, there was nothing. Blood was flowing freely from the hole, and when he stepped into the light, I saw his heart. It was leaking black blood and had a slash mark in it. You could have stopped Max, grabbed his arm, pulled him back, used Pancham to block the attack and protect. After all, you made a promise when we were younger, to always be by my side. But you let the attack connect. He said to me, the hollow sound that was his voice still nightmarish and broken. At his feet were pools of a black substance that definitely blood. It flowed too quickly and was too thin to be blood. There is a brief moment when a white squid-like being is in his place, but then he is gone. These visions had been happening for a whole week again. It started with a pale girl with hair that touched the ground blaming me for her misfortune. Then it started showing images of Ash's body all over the house, starting on my couch, covering the living room in that black blood. He was always asking the same question, why had I allowed them to hurt him? I looked at the Pokeballs on the shelf once more. I stared at them blankly, the quiet had settled in, then my phone went off. I pick it up and listen for the voice. Serena, he's alive and in Alola, I think you should go see him, if you can hear me then do it, just be careful what you do and say about his new friends, he doesn't take too kindly to that. It was Gary, he was trying to help me. I took the chance and gathered a bag, throwing his Pokemon in the bag, in a case that held 6. I also packed his awards that his mom had thrown away. I was so angry with her that I also grabbed the one reward she kept. His champion ring from the Orange Islands. It had a picture of his champion team and the stone with his Pokemon's footprints pressed into it. I know this is weird for a trader to a person to have, especially for a year. But after 6 months of hatred towards myself and towards him, I learned that it was not his fault, it was mine. I needed to see him, redeem myself in his eyes. But then again, maybe the apparition was right, he blames me and has completely pushed me out of his life. Back in Alola, Ash POV. Me and my Pokemon, both new and returned, were outside training. I had to improve if I was going to be ready for the Akala trials. Supposedly they were harder than the Melee trials by a long shot. Not only that, but I needed this. After all, I had been without my old Pokemon for a little over 3 months now, and needed to find out how the traders trained them and if they knew anything new. The hardest part was the Tauros were all different, each knowing good moves such as Solar Beam and Water Pulse, while others knew moves such as Flame Charge and Hyper Beam. Meanwhile, my younger and newest members were running up and down the beach. Rockruff was especially pushing his limit. He had been going since early this morning. He was the one that started this whole thing. He challenged Jangmo-o to a race and the two just started going nuts. Back and forth running, pushing themselves to be better than they were the lap before. But then I felt something. Now I do not mean like someone was touching me or that something rubbed against me, I mean I felt something either watching me or calling to me. Then her voice spoke, "Hey Ash, how have you been lately?" This voice was one I never wanted to hear again, one that Lily would murder if she ever found out what she did. What was she doing here? She was supposed to be in Johto taking on the festival. I didn't need her here right now, but at the same time I knew I needed to relax or my aura would trigger again. She was here now, might as well see what she wants. "What are you doing here, Serena? How did you find me?" I say as my Pokemon all began to tense up in case they needed to defend me or themselves. "Max found you. That little brat may be annoying, but he has the technology and connections to find a person. As of right now, he has the others out searching for you. Delia was hoping to have found you first. She always believed that you were still alive. I had lost all hope that you had survived Max's attack, but then I got a call. Gary told me you were here in Alola and that you were very much alive." Serena says as she looks me over. Like she was seeing things. Like this was all a dream. "How did you even get here though? The police are watching for all of you when you enter the islands. You are all supposed to be arrested upon entering the islands." I say as she looks at me with hurt in her eyes. Like what I just said was the worst thing that she had ever heard. "Please, we all are just trying to gain your forgiveness. Your mom hasn't been the same since, well, since you battled and beat her Dragonite. She said that you had no remorse, no restraint, you used Gudra. When did he become so powerful?" She says as I point to the ranch and tell a couple of my Pokemon to return to their areas on the ranch for safety. Most of my Pokemon, except for young Vulpix who jumped into my arms and cuddled closer to me, listened to me and entered the ranch and began to rest or graze, or even just play together. But they all kept their eyes on me and Serena. Then came the silence. Even for just a small amount of time, it was long enough to let Serena know that I was no longer the kid that took all their shit when I traveled with them. "Ash, please, I'm here to ask for your forgiveness, to ask if there is even a chance to gain what we had back then." I growl and turn on her, stomping over to her. No longer leaving the restraints on my aura. Just letting it blaze like the wildfire I was. "Your betrayal was the one that hurt the most, Serena. We were friends since I was a kid." I say to her, my anger growing, adding more fuel to the fire that was my aura. "I guess it would because I was one of your closest friends." She said back to me. Vulpix let off a small sound that was somewhere between a yip and a bark. I could feel her tense up with me and the cold seeped through my jacket as Vulpix began to charge an attack. Now Vulpix, that is enough of that. I say to the Snow Fox Pokemon as I put her down, and she goes over and sits next to Greninja, who was using Ice Beam to make a small area for her to lay in to stay cool. Now back to you, Serena. I want to know something. Do you know the pain of having serrated steel pass through your body? N.N.O. She stuttered out in fear and worry. Or how about thoughts of the end? Do you know how scary they are? Oh wait, I have a better one. Do you know what it is like to watch your whole world crumble? Because that is what it was like when you all watched as Max stabbed me through the chest. When May had fired the bullet. When I lost feeling in my wrist. I say as I rip open my vest and reveal the scar from the knife Max pushed through me. I don't know, and I know that there is no amount of apology in the world that would make up for what I did or any of us did. Serena said as tears began to well up in her eyes. I walked away from her and said, "You know this is a low blow, what I am about to say to you." I say as I take a deep breath, then turn. I loved you at one point, but in the past few months, I have realized that I shouldn't have helped you when we were kids. I then walked away completely. The last thought I had was hopefully she doesn't challenge me. But of course, life isn't that simple, because she did the stupidest thing she had ever done. I challenge you, Ash Ketchum, to a Pokemon battle. The world froze and you could hear a pin drop as I turned and smiled. I accept, just don't be surprised if I win. On the battlefield, Agent Looker POV. This is a 1 versus 1 official battle between Ash Kukui of Melee Island, Alola, and Serena Bernadette, went with a French last name, of Vanaville Town. Kalos shall now begin. If Serena wins, then Ash will hear her out. However, if Ash wins, Serena is to return the Pokemon that she stole from Mr. Kukui and leave the islands. The only way to revoke this is to re-challenge Mr. Kukui in the league and beat him there. The victor will be decided when one of the battlers either forfeits or all Pokemon on one side are unable to continue. The referee said as the two named trainers stepped into their stances. Serena, I am letting you have the first move since you are a visitor to the islands. Ash said as Serena nodded, her eyes sparking to life. Let's go, Absol. The honey blonde girl said as the disaster Pokemon appeared. Rockruff shows her our bond. I call out as I throw my puppy Pokemon out. He appeared and growled at Absol. As I looked closer at her Absol, I could see a mega cuff around his left front paw. Don't give him a chance to attack Absol using Detect. Rockruff uses it to your advantage, just like we practiced. When the Gleam appears, use Double Team, then let's do the thing. The raven-haired boy said as his eyes began to turn red. Everything happened. A Gleam appeared and the disaster Pokemon protected itself. However, Rockruff became faster and stronger, and multiple copies of itself. There were 5 total copies made, and they all seemed to hold the same intensity for battle as the original. Serena, which is the original? If you know me so well, then tell me which is the original. This would be a true statement, as she was a follower of him when he traveled throughout the Kalos region. Absol attacked the 4th one from the left. She yelled as her Absol fired a dark pulse at the copy. Wrong. I whisper as Rockruff faded to dust and the first from the left rushed forward and struck Absol with a vicious-looking Thunder Fong. The disaster Pokemon hit the ground hard, but it was still not fainted, and that should be expected from the Pokemon as it was raised by her since her 3rd day as Kalos Queen. It was a gift for her from Callum, who had become Kalos King. Absol, if you can still fight, then stand with me one more time. Serena said as her disaster Pokemon stood. All right, there is only one way we can win this against Ash, as he has obviously trained. I hear her whisper, then pull out a white bracelet with red DNA like swirls for an extra detail. Absol, the soul of your trainer calls to you, please answer. This is the call to you, Mega Evolve. She shouted as a pink sphere of energy surrounds her partner. Ah, so you learned to Mega Evolve, I see. Well, just more for me to prove I am not the childish person I was in all your eyes. Ash said as him and Rockruff stood tall even in the face of defeat. Absol shows them just how powerful you are, Dark Pulse. Serena yelled as a green glowing barrier appeared around Rockruff, who was protected from the chain-like dark attack. So you want full power, right? Then I will give it to you. Ash said as he nodded to Rockruff, who nodded back. There was a moment of silence from the two. Then green dust started falling from the sky. It was mainly focused on Rockruff, but that didn't mean it did not distract Absol. Absol watched as the dust fell and began to shake like he knew what this meant. Then I realized what it meant as well. Howl! Rockruff howled to the sky and then started to glow. Ash POV. After the glow appeared around Rockruff, I felt something inside me. A sort of warm glow like a friend was holding me close. I felt like I had just been given a power boost. I knew what this was and I liked it. This was something I had only felt with some of my Pokémon as we battled over the years. A bond that would last a lifetime. After the glow died, Lycanroc nodded to me before the light that wrapped around him died and we stood together. Lie. He howled into the air as his eyes turned green. His once brown fur was a Halloween orange and he had white tufts. His legs were now white as well as his tail, which had more hair than normal. Around his ears was black fur and he had spiked black fur around his neck. His claws were black and seemed to be covered in dirt. All right, Lycanroc, use Accelerock and finish this battle. I yelled to my new friend who rushes towards Absol, who tried to move but was still hit by the attack that did massive damage. There was a brief silence again, then Absol fell to the ground with swirls for its eyes. As it fell, there was rainbow energy wrapping around it as the disaster Pokémon reverted to its normal form. Absol is unable to battle. Ash Kukui wins. Mrs. Bernadette is to return her stolen Pokémon. Serena looked at me and nodded. She brought out 6 Pokeballs and handed them to me. I returned Venusaur, Feraligatr, Hawlucha, Levany, Bizel, and Samurott. I heard my Pokédex chirp letting me know that my Pokémon were back in my possession. I'm sorry for what I did to you, Ash, and I hope that one day our friendship can be healed. She said, then walked away. What she said to me made me think. I was able to forgive Gary but unable to forgive her that easily. Ash, it's time for you to get your stuff ready. We are heading to Akala today, remember? Kukui said from the doorway, and so I ran back to the house. And put my other Pokémon on the ranch for them to get reacquainted with their friends. I then grab my stuff on the way out the door, and as I run to the docks I see Serena one last time on the phone at the airport. Although I can't make out what she is saying, I can only guess. But based on her face it was nothing good. But I just brushed it off as nothing and continued running to the dock. At the airport, looker POV. Serena was at the airport on the phone with one of the traders telling them that Ash was in Alola heading to the next island. I smirked and just let her talk to the other trader and then walked up to her. Serena Bernadette, you are under arrest for the conspiracy and murder of Red Ash Satoshi Ketchum. I said to her as I pulled out the cuffs. But I didn't do it. He is alive here in Alola. I just saw him. I just had a battle with him. She said as I slapped the cuffs on. You mean the child you just had a battle with? His name isn't Red Ketchum, that is Ash Kukui, named for the ash trees here in Alola. Red Ketchum was found almost a year ago in Viridian Forest with a stab wound to the chest. I saw as I took her outside. Now I shall now read you your rights. I say as we get out of the airport. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. I began, but I can't help but smile as I realize I just helped an old friend. Ash Ketchum is dead as far as the world over knows, but here in Alola we know he is alive and well. Maybe one day I will meet up with him and help him in another quest to save the world. Ash POV. We were on the boat crossing the sea and I got this feeling something was watching me. But I just let it slide as something in the ocean keeping an eye on me. Alola was a place of beauty but also danger and I liked it. You know, Ash, this place was waiting for you. Kukui said behind me as an island came into view. I could feel it calling out to me. When I first came, I kept hearing a voice in my head say that this place needs my help. Solgaleo and Lunala both appeared before me and said that they needed help to protect the islands. It gave me the power I needed when I used my first Z move. It was there to help me overcome my anger towards Gary and my mother. This island is helping me, so I am ready to help it when she needs me. He nods as he stands next to me. It's just sad the circumstances of which you came to the island and why she has to help you. Kukui said as I nodded. It hasn't slowed me down, however. I mean, look at what has happened. I made a friend, who is also my rival. I have a girlfriend and a new family. I even have had some of my Pokémon returned to me and defeated the traitors who left me for dead. I say as I think back to what has happened in the past 6 months. I am going to go rest a little. Kukui, tell me when we get to the next island. I told Kukui who I got downstairs I lay down next to Lily who snuggles closer to me. Warmth, just like I wanted to feel right now. She said as she cuddled closer to me. I smiled and drifted off. When I woke up we had docked at a harbor with Lily shaking me. Ash, we are here, she said as I pulled into a dip and kissed her. When I came back up she had a smile on her face. Okay, that was worth the wait, she said as she pulled her into a standing position. Then the whole world distorted. It was like I was falling asleep again. Then the world went black. When I woke up this time I was in a cave somewhere that felt like Johto and two beings were circling above me. Hello. Again, chosen one, been a long time. I hear a deep male voice say in my head. Is it that time already, Mutuo? I ask the being as he touches down on the ground with his sister next to him. I am afraid so. Necrozma was taken back to his place of rest, and the light was corrupted, and now he is waking up looking for Solgaleo and Lunala. Mutuo explained to me as he pulled out a small bag. Arceus himself gave me this bag. In it are 6 items you will need. Mutuo explained as I opened the bag. The first item was a cherish ball and realized there were 2. These are to catch me and my sister. Arceus told us the prophecy and told us another line. A child from Alola opposite shall rise. Alola's light is to preserve or raise. Mutuo explained as he recited the missing lines from the prophecy. I smiled and put the 2 Pokeballs back in the bag. The next items were 2 cat's eye marble-like stones that I knew were Mega Stones thanks to the traders putting them on my Pokemon. These 2 stones belong to me. They allow me to Mega Evolve into either my X form or my Y form. Now remember, Ash Mega Evolution is a test of the bond between trainer and Pokemon, so I would train with me and your other Pokemon that can Mega Evolve in a safe place. I am sure Arceus said something about an archipelago he designed for you to do this on. Arceus also gave me bracers to hold the stones in and had them fit to my wrist by Diancie. Mutuo explained as he showed me his wrist. There were bracers on both of them. There were holes in the bracers where the stones would go. I nodded as I walked over and placed them in the holes. Mutuo, as I will soon become your trainer, I grant these stones to you to test the bond we have built over the years, I said, placing the stones into place. Mutuo nodded to me and I hugged him. Thank you for helping me get through Johto and Unova. I guess you knew what they were going to do. You just couldn't tell me. Then I broke down. Mutuo, I have become such a J. I made my own mother disown me. I was so cocky when I battled Gary that I got my Rockruff badly beaten and almost killed. I began to sob into the cloak my friend was wearing. Then when one of the traders came today, me and Lycanroc beat their Pokemon into almost death. And it wasn't out of fear for my life, it was like I wanted her to feel the same pain she caused me. I felt him nod and tears hit the top of my head. As you experience a pain no one should ever have to feel, and so your mental state is broken, I know when those scientists were experimenting on me that I killed them without mercy and hesitation. Then when I worked for Giovanni I killed even more people and Pokemon just to grow stronger. That is why I am the legendary Pokemon of redemption, so now it is time those that hurt you were forgiven so you are not like me. He said to me as he hugged me close to his chest. When we separated I reached into the bag and pulled out a Mega Ring. I doubt you need me to tell you what that is, Mutuo said as I slipped it onto my wrist right behind my Z-ring. But as I slide it on I feel something clip to my Z-ring. And the last item is Muse Z Crystal. You won't be able to use it until you complete your island challenge, but just know you have it. Now the chosen one captures us. I smile and pull out the Pokeballs and throw them at the Pokemon. They were SE-in and the ball instantly binged, signaling capture. Welcome to the family, you two, and thank you for listening, I say as the world goes black again. Lily POV. Welcome back, Ash, Kukui said as Ash appeared on the stone ground that was the deck of the Akala Marina. He felt different though. Stronger, almost too powerful to be the same kid that had disappeared. When he looked up, I looked into his eyes and saw why he felt different. His once amber eyes were now azul and seemed to dance with power. Chosen one, you need to calm down, a Pokemon said as it popped out of a red Pokeball that was at Ash's side. No, Mutuo, he needs to embrace this power. It's Necrozma talking to him, a powerful voice said as Lugia appeared from the sea. Something is corrupting his light and so he is calling out to the Chosen One for help. Lugia said as the blue glow disappeared and Ash stood. I guess now I can say it. Welcome to Akala, Ash. Kukui said as he pointed towards the town that was sprawled out. Ash nodded to Kukui and we all began to walk towards the Poke Center to heal Hao and Ash's Pokemon so that when morning comes tomorrow they were ready. Somewhere on Mailing. Mrs. Bernadette, you have been proven guilty of grand theft Pokemon, murder, and conspiracy to commit said murder. A judge said as he smacked down his gavel. But Ash isn't dead. She said as the video did indeed show a kid that looked like Ash Ketchum, but what she didn't know is that we found Ash dead in that forest. Shut it, murderer. We found Ash Ketchum in that forest dead with a knife wound to his chest. The judge said as he pulled out the pictures from the morgue report. ID confirmed it was him as well as a dental and DNA test. But at the same time your lie detector shows that you were telling the truth, so this may be his attacker and the blood we found may be from when he attacked Mr. Ketchum, but until that is proven the evidence says you did commit the first 2 crimes, so we are sending you to prison for those crimes. The judge said as she was carried off to prison. Looker you said she already returned the Pokemon she stole as well as one Gary Oak who had no idea what they had planned. I nod to the judge and he looks down sadly. It's just that the body fits what the Ketchum child looked like, but he also had all his Pokemon on him, and this kid is getting the stolen Pokemon back and even has the stab wound. However, the reports say that there was a gunshot at the Ketchum resident. The body in the woods didn't have a gunshot wound. The judge said as he looked at the reports. I will keep an eye on this. Kid, maybe it's not as weird as it looks. I say and quickly run out of the courtroom. Who is the kid we found if not Ash? Or is he from that other place? I say as I run to the local poke bank and begin to look more into the body of the Ash Ketchum child. Lana POV. The storm had gotten worse. I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to hold a trial today. But I still needed to check the trial area. During storms, some Pokemon get really riled up and tend to cause a lot of destruction to the trial site. When I got there began my check. I started with the wildlife around the trial site and by the Poke Center. Fomantis were lazing about and absorbing what light they could from the lightning. I was very quiet not to approach them as I didn't want to fight them. Then I moved to the trial site. The storm seemed to be focused there. Realizing that there may be a wild Pokemon here that didn't belong, I called out my Araquanid. He understood as soon as the rain hit his bubble. Keep an eye out for raging Pokemon. Try to calm them down if you can. She nodded and we moved in separate directions. I switched to the grass-type Z-move Mallow lent me when I first became the new trial captain, she said, until I could calm them with just a stare. Araquanid came over to me and nodded saying that the brooklet was cleared. Alright then, stay close. This is only the main section and the first section before trial goers are forced to stop capturing Pokemon. We walked to the second area and overlooked the area. It was mostly clear with some areas where the young Wishiwashi were playing in the rain. Dewpider were hanging on the water's edge making small areas where they could rest. However, there were also those that were looking toward a very large arachnid. This was one of the totem Pokemon. The other was a Wishiwashi that had greater control over the others here in the brooklet. When the totem saw me, it nodded to me and began to help the younger Pokemon make dens to stay in. It was also using its larger bubble to gather small Pokemon who were injured and moving them to a safe place to help them heal. Alright, looks like he has this place locked down, although I want you to stay here and help them out. I say to my Araquanid who nodded. I traveled down to the final area and began to search for any reason that maybe Wishiwashi may be angered. When I arrived, Wishiwashi was helping other fish Pokemon into dens, but it was also looking over a giant shadow in the water. Washi! One said to me as I looked down and see the little one looking toward the giant shadow. Do you need some help? He nods and I take off my clothes, revealing my blue one-piece swimming suit. I threw on the diving gear I had brought with me and dived in. As I swam closer to the Pokemon, I could barely make out a blue body with red lines running all over its back. It was huge, about the size of an average-sized island. Please, young human, help us. I am injured and am in need of some assistance. Was then that I realized that this giant blue whale Pokemon was the legendary Pokemon Kyogre. Which meant that the we she was referring to was Manaphy. I can try to help you, but I can't do much on my own. I could almost feel a smile appear on her lips. That is fine, I only have a couple of injuries. I hear in my mind. The voice was oddly calming but also held power. The chosen one is close, I can hear him. I hear her voice say in my head. Papa, close, a little blue Pokemon says as he swims out from behind the whale and looks directly at me. Kyogre, is this one of the guardians of his soul? He asks the blue whale, who looks at me and just smiles. If she wants to, young Manaphy, only if she wants to. She says as I look over her face. You have been poisoned by something, my only question is what would be bold enough to poison you? I say as I call out my Wishiwashi and tell him to find me some herbs that grow on the bottom of the brooklet that are good for healing poison. When she returns, I swim to my bag and grab a mortar and pestle. Manaphy swims out of the brooklet and watches me work. I start by crushing up some pecha berries I had in my bag. Wait, are you Siren? I hear Manaphy ask me. Manaphy, it's Lana. Siren was the previous trial captain. She used to run the brooklet before I did, that was a couple of years ago however. I smile as I remember how my mom was. She was powerful and feared among the people of Akala. Before I begin to speak again, I grab some of the herbs that Wishiwashi had gathered for me. Alright Manaphy, listen, I am going to need you to be careful when I go back down. Sharpedo are known to live in this part of the brooklet and they tend to attack me. He nods and I grab my diving gear again. I turn the paste into a water-safe pill and dive back into the water. Young Lana, you are just like your mother. Kyogre says as I put the pill into her mouth. Easy now Kyogre, this may take a little bit to take effect, but when it does it should be a huge blast of relief. I say as I begin to rub her skin. The warm blubber is smooth against my hand. I sense a great pain from you, child of the sea. Is it because of something at home? Kyogre says as I nod. My dad wants me to stop being the trial captain. Kyogre just seems to scoff at this and says, I thought you looked familiar. Siren's is your mother, isn't she? She says as I nod. Your father tried to pull this same stunt with your mother when she became trial captain. I once told Ash about him in one of his recent dreams. He also said that he has always felt a sort of draw to the ocean. Kyogre says and I kinda smile. This was basically the god of the ocean and she was talking to me like I was her teen friend. Then once she was healed I smiled at her and said, Alright, looks like I should get going, looks like you are fine, so be careful. She nodded and I swam back to the surface. I then quickly dried off and threw my clothes back on. Remember this, Lana, keeper of the brooklet, show him your soul and allow him to show his. You are one of 7. Manaphy says before stepping back into the water and diving back down. A couple days later. I blushed when I thought about what the young Manaphy said to me a couple days ago as I walked back to my house. This was the 3rd day that a major storm had rocked the brooklet and all of Alola. It had caused some major damage to the areas of trial sites and mine was mostly just a couple trees fell. However, the grass types would heal the trees using an absorb growth combo. Remember the episode where Tangrowth and the other forest Pokemon would go around and steal energy from other Pokemon then use growth on the tree? Same idea. Today was day 4 and when I visited that night the rain had stopped and as there was no longer a danger to the Pokemon of the trial area and I made sure. I left early and went home. When I got there, after traveling through Diglett Cave, I saw that my sisters were laying on their beds and were asleep. When I looked at my clock I saw that it was about 9 at night, so that meant that they were just getting to sleep. But that also meant that I was supposed to be here nearly an hour ago. You're late, Lana. I hear a deep male voice say behind me. I have a responsibility to the Pokemon of the brooklet. Because of the rain we have had the last few days, the trial Pokemon were getting out of hand, that is why it has been raining. If it wasn't one it was the other. I also had to train a new totem Pokemon, and because of that I will be there more often than not. I say as I pull out a Pokeball and let out my Dewpider. Do. It said in a questioning tone. Lana, if you are going to keep coming home late then you may have to pass the responsibilities on. My father says to me as I get angry and send my Dewpider off to my sister's room to watch over them. Oh, so what is it that you hate, that I am out most of the time or that I actually have a life outside of the house? That I am not home to watch over my sisters when you go out drinking at night? You don't think I don't know about that? Since my mom left him my dad had become a drunk, and he was supposed to become part of the Elite Four. Don't take that tone with me, young lady. My father yelled at me and went to rush me. A purple barrier appeared in front of me. She is one of my trial captains, sir. If you harm her, she becomes unable to perform her duties. This island may fall into disarray. A female voice says as I smile. Tapu Lele had saved me. I was grateful to Tapu for saving me. But then again, this had become a common occurrence. My dad was always drunk. He would go out with the sailors that came into port and get completely wasted. Living by the sea has its flaws and its strength. Well, considering I have to walk from the brooklet to here, and then have to weave around people takes about an hour, and the fact that the brooklet was starting to flood, how am I to leave the people that live there to have their homes flooded and their lives ruined? I say as Dupiter comes back and shakes my pant leg. Do, he says as I nod and walk back to my sister's room. When I got there, I saw that the twins had woken up and were trying to listen through the door. Are you and Daddy fighting again? They ask me as I sit them back on their bed. No, Dad is just a little sick and I was just telling him to go to bed. I say through gritted teeth. Hey, want to come with me to the brooklet? I say to them. I know this was a risky move, however I needed to get them out of the house for the night. My dad was too far gone, and I didn't need the stress of wondering if they were safe or if Dad had hurt them. They pack a small bag of stuff to do and their rain gear. They had come with me before and they had learned. Dupiter walks in and nods towards the brooklet. Alright, I know I have a late night trial goer, but I had to stop by the house and make sure these little ones were okay. Just get a couple of spare crystals and my phone. I tell him as I pull out a Pokeball and pass it to Harper. This is a Poplio that you saw the last time you were at the brooklet. I say as she looks at the Pokeball. I pulled out another one and handed it to Sarah. This is the Squirtle you met last time you were at the brooklet. Treat him with respect and he may help you. I say and she nods. Alright, you two, now come on. Remember guys, you have school in the morning. I say as I walk towards the door. Lana, stop. My father says as I look at him. Where are you going and why are your sisters with you? He says as I turn and look at him. I have a challenger tonight and I told you that, that's why I slept this morning. I say as I walk towards the dresser and grab something I almost forgot. What do you mean, you have a challenger tonight? I thought you could only do a trial in the morning. He says as he steps closer. No, you can have a challenger at any point in a day. I say as I grab another Z crystal off the dresser. Well, I forbid you to go, tonight, tomorrow, or ever again. He says as he grabs my arm. His nails pushed against my wrist, I can feel the blood run down my arm as they dug in deeper and deeper. Release out, sister. I hear Harper as I hear a Pokeball burst open. Yeah, leave her alone. I hear Sarah say as I hear a second ball burst open. Or what will 2 6-year-olds do? He says in a teasing voice until something he sees makes him back off. I look over to see that my sisters both have a Z-ring on and have the Wadirium Z attached to them. Or we will use the force of Alola. They say together in perfect harmony. He let go of me and backed away. If you cannot accept that I am responsible for the brooklet, then why do you even care? I say to my father as I walk out the door, my sisters not far behind me. When I arrived at the brooklet, I saw that there were some kids outside of the entrance. One was a kid with an oddly colored Lycanroc at his side and a Rowlet on his shoulder. I was drawn to him. He seemed to hold a hidden power. How would you calm down? This is the location we have to be in for the next trial, and have some patience. A girl with brown hair and a blue shirt with an Empoleon by her side said. She said this to a kid with green hair and hazelnut skin. That is what the map says, but at the same time it also says that the captain should be here. Maybe she is just running late. The map says she lives on another part of the island. A blonde-haired girl says as she pulls out a map of Akala. The girl with brown hair nodded as well. Hey, has anyone seen Ash? The blonde said as I looked around for the kid that had the Lycanroc and Rowlet. He sat on top of a rock that overlooked the brooklet, but now he wasn't there, and I am pretty sure that I would have heard him move from where he was. Why are you spying on us? I hear a deep male voice say behind me. I nearly jumped out of my skin and actually fell out of my hiding spot. I wasn't spying, I was trying to figure out who the trial goers were. I say defensively. The person who had snuck up on me came out of the bushes and walked towards me. His amber eyes burned with anger, but on the inside they held a kindness. His clothes were form-fitting and I could see his abs. 2, 4, 6, oh he has a six-pack. Oh my Lunala, you could grind meat on those. Are you the trial captain? He asks me. His gruff voice was something of a dream for me. Lana, get yourself together, girl, he probably had a girlfriend. I say in my head as he helps me up. Yeah, my name is Lana. I say as I take his hand. And as I take his hand I feel a small shock of electricity. It wasn't actual electricity, more like sparks you hear about in romance movies. I'm Ash, I am here to take your trial. He says in that deep voice that was making me want to be his. I nod to him and walk over to the gate. Welcome to the Brooklet Hills trial site. Now as I understand it, we have 2 trial goers tonight. I say as I stand before the 2 boys. They nod and I walk towards the gate. I place my Z-ring onto the gate and it opens. Now before we begin, allow me to introduce myself. I am the water trial captain, Lana, and these are my sisters Sarah and Harper. I say as the twins come out from behind the bushes. Now, How, you may go first. How nodded and ran into the trial zone. He seemed overconfident and seemed to hold an iron will. All right, Ash, you will go next. The trial, if done correctly, should take no more than an hour. He nodded and I finally saw his face. Spiky raven black hair, amber eyes, and lightning bolt-like marks above his cheeks. Ash Ketchum, I thought I recognized your name. I say as I pull out a picture of a city covered in snow and all the Pokémon heading towards the south from Alola. I remember this day. I had just taken over the responsibilities of a trial captain from my mother when the title bell we keep here began to ring. Lugia had risen and with the help of his chosen hero he was going to save the world. I say to him as he begins to tear up. Melody was my only true friend that day, except for Lugia. He says as he walks away. Ash, there is no reason to leave, stay please. The girl with brown hair said as she reached out to him, but he glowed blue and disappeared. Lily, he vanished again. She says to the blonde who pulls out her bag and a small Pokémon popped out and looked at her. Nebby, I need you to find Ash, alright, he may be in danger. Lily said as the small Pokémon also glowed and vanished before my eyes. Oh, so you reminded him of his past. Well, you see, Ash recently had an incident with his friends. They betrayed him and left him for dead in the woods. The Legendaries found him, he was barely alive, and so they sent here to Alola to get him away from those he was betrayed by. That is when he met Lily and how they helped him heal and also watched over his Pokémon that returned to him. Verity explained as she brought out some berries for some reason. But at the same time there was also this Shalebi that would visit him in the night. It would sometimes bring a Pokeball with it and place it near Ash's heart. Lily explained as she brought out a Pokeball and it snapped open. Then in her lap was a small mouse-like Pokémon. Hey Piku, I want to play a little. The small Pokémon nodded and began to run around. Lily would chase it. They acted like this was completely normal, that Ash would just vanish like this. So why would reminding him of his past make him teleport away like that? I ask as Verity walks over to me. The traders found out he was still alive after he had a battle with his mother. She said as she began to turn the barriers into a paste. She went home that day crying, and just like that his life entered a downward spiral. Many of the traders started to appear here in Alola, some trying to make him go back to Kanto, saying that they had changed and that they were sorry. Verity as she pulled out a bottle of water and turned the paste into a liquid-like state that was blue. While others tried to steal his new Pokémon from him, while holding his old ones captive. Lily explained. She had just grabbed Piku and now looked angry with the thought of these people. His oldest friend actually said that he was too weak to even be near her as she is the Kalos queen now. Lily continued. However, when she found out Ash was still alive, she showed up and challenged him to a battle. Lily got this look in her eyes that was similar to how I looked earlier when I was having that fantasy. He was vicious and completely devastated her. Verity explained as she showed me the video. So that is the infamous power of Lycanroc Dusk form. I say as I watch both battlers going head to head. Starting as a small Rockruff, the battle was a little one-sided. But then I watched as a fire attack seemed to be this person's undoing, as the Rockruff glowed and began to change forms. Its body extended and became more wolf-like, and his eyes changed colors to an emerald green. Its fur became white, black, and orange like Halloween. From here on, the power the two put out messes with the video, but that absolutely is still in the Poke Center. And according to Kukui, that was them holding back. I cringed when Verity said this. I hope I didn't bring up bad memories for him. I say I'm a little nervous. About an hour earlier, Ash POV. We had just walked past a ranch where there were tons of Pokemon just playing and having fun. I had just gotten out of a battle with a Taurus, and the person handed me a soothing bell. I was happy about that, as it meant that I could make Crabrawler more friendly towards me. I called him out and wrapped the bell around him. Alright Crabrawler, we need to start training together, how about it? I say to him and he nods. I smile and begin to walk, and he follows me. As we walk, I look back at Crabrawler and see if he is still behind me. I can still hear the bell as we walk, so I knew he was there. I just wanted to see if he was doing any better. I hated the way I captured him, but I needed to, as it would have been a problem for him. As a fighting type, Crabrawler was at a disadvantage, as a ghost fairy type is unaffected by most fighting type moves. I smiled as I remember that day. I had just completed my first trial and was walking back to town to have a battle with the Kahuna. He was battling Mimikyu, and I saw it as an opportunity to capture some good Pokemon. I just wanted a friend. He needed a trainer. So we made a bond. Regardless of what the two of us thought at the time. Crabrawler, let's show them what trainers and Pokemon can do with a very little bond. He nodded and returned to his Pokeball. As we walked, we ran into a girl with brown hair and wearing a blue shirt. She had blue eyes and an Empoleon at her side. Verity, I say as I look at the girl. She had grown a lot since I last saw her. She was definitely eye candy, and trust me when I say eye candy. Her chest was at least at a low C to a high B, her hair was at least down to her shoulders. She was slim and had that gymnast body. You know, Ash, you shouldn't stare, it's disrespectful. I hear her say as I shake my head and look her in the eye. Sorry about that, you're just hot now. I said absent-mindedly to her. She blushes and punches my shoulder. I heard from Arceus that you were looking for some new friends, thought I fit the bill. I nod until Mutuo appeared and spoke to me mentally. Remember what Arceus and Lugia said, that you will love multiple women. I only nod to him and he returns. So Verity wants to travel with us. Lily asks, as she knew what Lugia and Arceus had in mind for me. Verity seems to think for a minute before nodding. Verity pulls me into a hug and then pulls out a map and points out where the next trial site is. The next is the water trial, and reports say that there have been sightings of the gym leader Misty. At the mention of her name, I tense up. One of the traders was in the area. If she interrupted my trial, I may not be able to control what I did. There were always high levels of aura in the cities. I knew this was a test of my control. All right, let's head there. We all nodded to each other, but Lily stayed close to me in fear of my aura getting out of hand. When we arrived at the site, it was late and the trial captain wasn't even there. What if we missed her, or if there was something we had to do at the ranch? Hao says as he begins to freak out. I was sitting on top of a rock overlooking what I thought was the trial site, and then I heard it. The snap of a twig. The sound wasn't very loud, which told me that the thing that snapped it wasn't very large but was trying too hard to be stealthy. I portaled behind the being and waited until it had come to rest. When light from the moon shone through the trees, I saw that it was a girl with blue hair and a blue Z-ring on her wrist. She must be the trial captain. I say in my head. This is about where Lana comes in, and from here on the story continues. I portaled myself into an unfamiliar location. There were ruins like stones littered in the surrounding grass. At the center there was what looked like a battlefield. At the center of said battlefield was what looked like a pink pot with an antenna. Lycanroc growled at the thing and Rowlet became nervous. My other Pokemon popped out of their Pokeballs and stared at the thing, each reacting a little differently. Then my other Pokemon just started teleporting to me. Everyone was here. At least those I had received back from the traders, and Jangmo-o had appeared. The pot then popped open and revealed something that looked similar to Tapu Koko, from when he saved me. Then Mutuo and Mew popped out of their Pokeballs and stared at the Pokemon, well until Mew rushed forward yelling, "Sister!" in a squeaky voice. Mutuo face-palmed and it made me smile to see him do so. Tapu Lele, nice to see you again. He says as he rubs his temple. Wait, this is the Tapu of this island. I say as Lycanroc nods to me. Said Tapu looked over to me and smirked before floating over and slapping me. Tapu Lele, you know better than to slap the chosen one. A godlike voice spoke as Arceus appeared behind Tapu Lele. Yes, Papa, she said in an innocent voice, and floated back towards the battlefield. Arceus then nodded and teleported away. Chosen one, I understand your anger towards your friends, but you must understand that Akala isn't the place to be angry. Your Pokémon have begun to return to you. You have 2 girls in love with you and you have to get that temper under control. Tapu Koko may love to battle, but I hate to see innocence hurt, so you can simply grow. Remember this because we may one day join you. She said as my Pokémon looked at me. You're right, however if they challenge me, am I allowed to battle them? She smirked and said, I said I do not. Like the innocent to be harmed, however, if they challenge you, make them suffer. I almost shivered at her words because the way she said it was kinda spooky. Almost like a serial killer. She then smiled and my Pokémon began to teleport back to Kukui's lab. Oh, and one more thing. Chosen one, 2 more allies are closer than you think. Tapu Lele says. As my Pokémon returned to their Pokeballs. She then teleported me back to the trial site. I had a smile on my face as I stepped back over to the girls. He is taking this journey to show his friends that he will always get back up. Even at the darkest moments, the light will always find him. I heard Verity say as I felt a presence behind me. Come out, Marshadao, I know you are there. I say as the small fighter appears out of my shadow. March, he says as he stands next to me. He hands me a Cherish Ball and a Z Crystal. It's time for me to get a trainer and I felt like you were the best choice. He says as he taps the Cherish Ball. I feel the Pokeball ping signaling capture and then it glows and teleports to the lab. I feel happier like Marshadao had revealed the memory to me. Chosen one, know that I may be here at the place your Pokémon are, but I will always be with you. I leave you both the Dark Feather and the Rainbow Feather you used to awaken my Lord Ho-Oh. May you one day call on her. I hear Marshadao say in my head. I look down at my jacket and see the Rainbow Feather glowing brightly. You hold the power to restore anyone's light to full power. I hear him say in my head again. I smile and walk towards everyone. I feel my anger and aggression disappearing. Hey guys. I say and my voice sounds more relaxed, the more its normal tone, just a bit older. Everyone turned to me and smiled. Hey Ash, welcome back, we were just talking about you. Lily said as I stepped up to the gate. How already completed his trial and he has gone back to the Poke Center to heal his Pokémon. Lana explained as she blushed. Alright, come one out, Rowlet, Pikipek. I say as the 2 avian Pokémon appear. Lana nodded and we entered the trial site. When I saw that this was basically a water battle, I was happy that I brought Rowlet and Pikipek with me. Ash, you know you have access to all of your Pokémon, right? I nod to Lana as I shift the pants I was wearing into shorts. I also begin to take off my shirt until I see Lana's eyes. She had those sympathetic eyes. She had seen the scar. I dropped my shirt and nodded to my Pokémon. The 2 of them took to the air while I ran and jumped into the water. The water felt good against my skin as I swam deeper and deeper. You weakling, can't even train your water types right. Her voice says in my head as I go deeper. You really are such a little kid, maybe Iris is right with that insult. I hear again. That is when I see her. Her orange hair, pale skin, and blue swimsuit. Alola episode clothes when she goes swimming with Lana. I dove out of the water as well as she and we faced each other. So the weakling really did leave the region. Look at traitorous beach, welcome to my home turf. I say as Tapu Lele floats down next to me. She looks at the red-haired traitor and starts to laugh. This woman wants to be the master of all water types. She probably barely handles that stereo of hers. Tapu Lele says, circling Misty. Chosen one, the totem Pokémon have asked to battle this girl with you. Come forth, Wishiwashi, Araquanid. 2 Pokémon appeared. One was a small fish Pokémon that was white and blue and looked like it wanted to cry. It looked at Misty and let off a knowing smile. The other was a giant green spider-like Pokémon with big blue eyes and had a water bubble surrounding its head. It made me feel small and scared. It provoked fear and intimidation. It looked at Misty like she wasn't even worth its while. Araquanid passed me a blue Z-crystal and nodded to me. Ash, it says you have passed the trial. You can use the Z move. I hear Lana say on the dock. Rowlet and Pikipek stood next to the two Pokémon on lily pads and stones. Misty calls Gyarados, Seaking, Starmie, and Kingdra. She yells out as her 4 Pokémon appear. Let's make a wager, Misty. I win, you return my Pokémon. If I lose, I come back with you and I stop being a trainer. I hear Lana gasp and I look at her with a smile. That was when Lily, Verity, and Hao ran into the fray. Ash, show her your true strength and hold nothing back. I hear them yell to me. I take off my Z-ring and toss it to Lily. Hold on to this, beautiful. She catches it and blushes. This battle between Ash Kukui of Melee Island and Misty Waterflower of Cerulean City shall now begin. Challenger has the first move and begin. Lana said as she watched the battle unfold. A shadow appeared around Wishiwashi as she dived under the water, then a giant fish that appeared to be made of Wishiwashi appeared. And from the start the totem Pokémon is going strong as its ability school form takes effect. I hear Verity say into a recorder. After she went back to Sinnoh, she stopped doing what she was doing and started taking recordings of battles she had. Now she does it for me as I battle. Kingdra makes this a quick match. I want to be back in time for tea time. Use Dragon Pulse, she says in a Starky attitude. I laugh and give a command to my Pokémon. Pikipek, take this to the air. Rowlet, just like we practiced, protect. Rowlet appears in front of the attack and puts a green barrier up in front of himself and the totem Pokémon. Araquanid uses Reflect. I say to the spider Pokémon as he follows the command. Seaking, use Surf to try to knock Rowlet down, she says as she still has confidence apparent in her voice. Pikipek switch with Rowlet, protect. Pikipek flew down and Rowlet shot up and flew above the battlefield. When Surf came, Pikipek was surrounded by a green barrier as it protected. Wishiwashi appeared next to Pikipek and did the same. When the Surf stopped, Pikipek was barely able to fly. It was still low level, I think, but it was also determined. There was a silence. Then there was a glow that spread around Pikipek. It was evolving and I smirked. The glow became blinding and then it vanished, and before me was a larger woodpecker Pokémon as she flew before me as she stared down at Misty's Pokémon. Trumbeak, the woodpecker Pokémon. Their Pokémon usually serve as queens of a nest of Pikipek. Known for caring for the young of the nest, Trumbeak fight off predators who get too close to the nest. I hear Rotom say as Trumbeak stands tall. Alright, here we go. Lily, may I have my ring please? Lily nods and throws me my Z-ring. I catch it on my hand and it slides into place. I pull out the cerulean blue Z-crystal with a feather on it and connect it to my Z-ring. Alright Rowlet, Trumbeak, stand with me. They both nod and fly down and stand next to me. Alright, here we go, I say as I cross my arms at the wrist over my chest. Then the side, cross in front, to summon the power of the crystal. Let it wash over me, Rowlet and Trumbeak. Flap my arms like wings, crouch down, then jump up and make a Superman punch. Call out the move name, Supersonic Skystrike. I yell as both of them are surrounded by the Z power and perform the attack in perfect sync. The attacks hit Kingdra and Gyarados, who fainted instantly. Misty, where is that big mouth of yours? I ask, taunting her as she begins to shake in her boots as her 2 powerhouses have just fallen from one attack. I still have 2 Pokémon able to battle, don't get cocky, she says as she tries to pull off a look of victory. Araquanid and Wishiwashi both perform an attack and knock Seaking out. Make that 1 Pokémon still standing, I say as I look at her still trying to make a comeback. Starmie, use Aqua Ring, hopefully that will help me a little bit, she says as I just smirk. Rowlet, use Leafage. Quills appear and are fired at Starmie, who takes the hit directly and is launched back. Trumbeak, use Bullet Seed, I say as my woodpecker Pokémon went to work pushing the Starmie back even farther in health. This battle is over. All of Mississippi Waterflower's Pokémon are fainted. which means that the winner of this match is Ash Kukui. Misty fell to her knees and returned her injured Pokémon. She pulls out 6 Pokeballs and hands them to me. She is crying once she realizes that I am not one to mess with and never have been. Here, Ash, these are your Palpitoad, Kingler, Corphish, Scraggy, Bold and Snivy, she said as she handed me each Pokeball. They all teleported to the lab. Misty, if it is all right by you, I would like to never see you again, as your betrayal was the worst I ever felt. I say to her as I walk away from her. I turn back towards her for just a second. Maybe one day, we can be friends again, but for now, I see no reason to be friends with you, I say as I turn once more and walk the opposite direction of my group. I feel something pulling me forward, calling out to me. Ash, we need to get going. I nod and leave the brooklet with Misty following us out. When we got outside, the police came and took Misty away for conspiracy to murder and poke theft. Hey Ash, who was that lady? Lana asks me as we enter the Pokemon Center to heal. She was a girl I met after I traveled with Verity and Sorrel, I say as I take out a picture of me and all my friends the night before the betrayal. We were all smiling as I held the 2nd place trophy over my head. Who knew that that was all a farce? I owed her a bike because my original partner fried her bike, I say to Lana as I smile. We traveled the rest of Kanto and all of the Orange Islands and Johto together. In every region she was like my sister, helping me when she could, getting jealous of a girl named Melody who was flirting with me. I say to her as memories come back to me. They were once happy, but now all they were dark reminders that she left me for dead. After Johto she went home and I only saw her a couple of times after that when I traveled to Kanto for the Battle Frontier. I explain as I pull out another picture and show Lana. Even more memories flooded my mind, and it made me angry. I battled the Frontier and I won, trainers stronger than any Elite Four. It only took me about 10 battles total. Yet when it came to a tournament and I lose, I get betrayed. I am the Orange Island champion and that is not an achievement to them. She was the first to speak the night of my betrayal, calling me weak and useless, saying that all my victories were flukes. I say as those memories come back to me. But now I feel better. She is no longer in my life, and instead I have 3 gorgeous girls in my life. 2 are dating me and the 3rd is standing next to me. I say to her as she blushes. Remember, Chosen One, what Lugia told you. The Keeper of the Brooklet and the Maiden of the Jungle shall be an important part of your journey. Marshadao said in my head. Want to join me, Lana, on a journey across Alola? I ask her as we leave the Poke Center. She just shakes her head. Unfortunately, I have a father who is trying to get me to stop being a trial captain, so I seriously doubt he would let me travel the region with a boy, his 2 girlfriends, and their friend who is also the boy's rival. She says as we continued to walk. We had walked to Route 5 where there were 2 Sudowoodo blocking the way. When they saw our Z crystals, they quickly ran off and unblocked the path. Me and Lana continued to walk down the path while Hao, Lily, Verity, and Lana's 2 sisters walked into a plaza-looking place. I caught a quick glance of a tournament hall and that kid that Lily has a picture of. We walked into a tunnel with tons of gleaming stones, and sometimes a Zubat or 2 would fly overhead. As we pass a mine-like area, I see an Eevee laying on the ground badly beaten with a few bigger Pokemon looking over it with smirks. Counting the Pokemon, I saw that there were 5. There was a strange dragon-like Pokemon with golden scales and what appeared to be knuckles. There was a Tyranitar, a Garchomp, Charizard, a Salamence, and an Aggron. They began to close in on Eevee when a Litten jumped in front of the Eevee and stared them all down. I saw this and knew he needed help. I drew Mimikyu's Pokeball and threw it out. Mimikyu, help him out. I shout as my ghost friend appears. Wobbuffet, give Ash some assistance. I hear an all-too-familiar voice say behind me as a blue Pokemon appears alongside Mimikyu. Jessie, what are you doing here? I say as the Pinkette steps beside me. Helping, she said as she pulled out his earring. Listen to me, Ash. Before I lived in Kanto, I lived here in Alola. I was the original trial captain for the Psychium Z Crystal, she says as she shows me the Z Crystal. I nod and stand next to her. Oh, even more weaklings, let's see if you can beat me. I hear a voice say as I grow angry. It was Tobias, but where was his Latios and Darkrai? Tobias, I say as I crouch down. Well, look who it is, Ketchum, the reason I no longer have those weak legendaries. He says with a smirk. What did you do with them? I say as Litten and Mimikyu get into a battle-ready stance. I severely beat them and left them for dead by some ruins when they lost to a weak Pokémon. That's when my aura sprang to life. He disrespected what were basically gods to people, but also who were my friends. This was not allowed. Mimikyu, you have 5 targets, they all need to fall. I say as he nods to me. Litten looked to me and ran over to Eevee and dragged her to me. Lit. It says to me and points to a Pokeball on my belt, then Eevee and himself. You got it, Litten. I say as I pull out 2 Pokeballs and tap Eevee. It pinged instantly and teleported to the lab. Alright, Litten, you and me together. He nods and taps the other Pokeball with his paw. I grab Crabrawler Pokeball and send it to the lab. Alright, Litten, come on out. I say as the small cat-like Pokemon appears on the ground. Mimikyu, Litten together. I say as they nod. I see blue hues spread across them both and they smile at me. Litten Ember on Agron. I say as he rushes forward. Charizard tries to get in the cat's way only for Mimikyu to knock the dragon back with Play Rough. Salamence stopped that Fur Ball used Dragon Pulse. Tobias says only for Mimikyu to step in front of the attack and do the same to Salamence that he did to Charizard. The difference is that Salamence fell to the ground and fainted. Worthless Pokemon. Tobias said as he pulled out a Pokeball and snapped it in half. My world slowed down and became red. Tobias had just sealed his fate. Mimikyu, get into stance. He nodded to me and Litten jumped back and stood next to her. The two nodded to each other and stared down the opponent. Garchomp Surf, knock them both out. Tobias yells and I smirk. And as the surf got closer I nodded to Mimikyu who jumped in front and waited for my command. Mirror Coat Wobbuffet, send that power back. I hear Jessie say as the blue Pokemon jumps in front of both of my Pokemon and makes a rainbow barrier appear around himself and absorbs the power and sends it back to the Tyranitar. Wobbuffet jumps back and stands next to Mimikyu and Litten. Alright, you two as a team. They nod and I take my stance. Cross over the chest, to my sides, then forward. I stop and look to my left and see that Jessie is following my movements. She had been holding off the Tyranitar on her own with Wobbuffet and got what I was doing. She nodded to me as we slid our arms to the side. Then took one to the other side. Then crossed at our chest once more and called it out. Z-Mimic, Breakneck Blitz, Hydro Vortex, Draconic Rage. We yelled together as the 3 attacks surrounded our Pokemon who dove into action, performing them flawlessly. The 5 Pokemon before us all fell to their knees and Tobias crushed their Pokeballs in his hands. The Pokemon howled in pain as the Pokeballs turned to dust. I pulled out 5 more Pokeballs and got the professor on the phone. Professor, I need a trainer's license revoked ASAP. He just abandoned 5 Pokemon who are injured from battle, sending them your way now. I said as I threw the 5 Pokeballs which all glowed teleported away to the lab, to be healed. Tobias is the trainer's name. He is leaving Diglett Cave. The professor responded accordingly. I heard the sound of an emergency Pokeball release sound and then I heard the sound of sirens. He was captured. The professor says to me as I nod and me and Lana continue our walk through the cave. As we leave the cave we see the police have Tobias in cuffs as he tries to escape. I walk past and he doesn't say a word to me. He knows that I have finally beaten him. It felt good. Then something happens. 2 Pokeballs fall out of his pocket and roll towards me. I pick them up and look at them. I then walk over to Tobias and look him dead in the eyes. You never released the Legendaries, did you? He nods. Those Pokemon you had, they weren't yours, were they? They were trainers. He abused them and you stole them to save their lives. The act was to make me think they were your Pokemon, so that I wouldn't hold back, so that I would believe that you were angry, so angry that you would break their Pokeballs if they lost. He nods again. You wanted me to capture those Pokemon and send them back to my dad to have them healed, and because you don't have a professor you needed someone that you knew did, you were watching me. He nods again. Officer, release this kid, he did nothing wrong. They nod and he pulls out a badge. I work with your friend Cross. He heard about the traders and what happened to you from this region's champion. He also told me that those 5 would need a trainer like you to become stronger, to heal from the mental scars their trainer out on them. I nodded, then I passed him the 2 Pokeballs, but he pushed them away. These 2 were looking for you for a while. Keep them safe. I have my other Pokemon. They were just looking for you, asking to be brought to you. I nod and the Pokeballs turn to Cherish Ball and teleport to the lab. Tobias nods to the officers who pat him on the back and laugh. Hey Ash, mind if I travel with you to the next town? My transfer is waiting for me there. I nod and we walk down the road. Lily POV. Lana was a close friend of mine. Since I first traveled the region with Sun and Moon, the 2 brothers, one went to work with my mother and the other went and became the champion. But now my mom is at it again. She sent Moon somewhere and Sun is out of the region dealing with Ash's friends. That Misty chick made 3 that attacked him. Which means somewhere someone told the others where he was. Maybe my mom was behind this somehow. I say under my breath. I walk into the Poke Center and see that Ash and Lana are no longer with us. Hey guys, have you seen Ash and Lana? I ask the other 2 as they both shake their heads. They left a while ago. I think they missed the turn. The 2 of them were talking about Ash's past with Misty. Verity says as she puts her Pokemon in the tray to heal, how does the same? I just shrug my shoulders and walk outside and see if the 2 return throughout the night. When it became late I began to worry. The 2 had wandered off a little while ago. I was worried, yes, but not scared because I knew that Ash was strong enough to take care of both of them. Ash POV. We entered a small town with some fancy buildings and a lighthouse. We walked through the town and looked at each building. Lana explained that she lived here as well as one of the other trial captains and the kahuna. Hey Lana, where are your sisters? I say as I realize that her sisters came with us but were not with us now. I smiled at that because it meant that I couldn't be here, but with the help of the trial captain I was. Choose one to come to the docks, we are waiting for you there. I hear a female voice say in my mind that I knew that voice from somewhere, but where? I grabbed Lana's arm and began to pull her through the town. Left at the next corner, then rush forward. The voice says to me. I run faster and faster, infusing my aura into my muscles and lungs, jumping over people and running on walls. As I get close to the voice grows silent. When I arrived at the dock, there were 4 people standing on the end. The first looked a lot like Gary except his eyes were a deep blue and there was a Blastoise behind him. The person standing next to him was a girl in a yellow sundress. Not sure if this is correct, just always pictured her like this. She had a Pidgey on her arm and seemed to be having an adamant conversation with the bird. Behind her was a girl with a very big sun hat on her head with a red skirt. She had a blue top with a white collar with a red bag over her shoulder, her leaf green attire. She had a Venusaur behind her and the Pokemon had a mega band around its tree. The stone firmly locked into the band. But they were not the ones I was focused on. There was a man who looked like me, standing behind them all. Behind him was a Charizard with a mega gauntlet on its left arm. At the center of the gauntlet was a black and blue stone. I knew all too well from when I fought a similar Charizard in Kalos. The man himself had raven black hair, with a red ball cap on his head. He also had a red jacket, his soul silver clothes. He radiated power and made me back up. This was a scary group of people. Apart they were powerful, together they were one unstoppable team. Red, the reigning champion of Kanto, flew above the docks on his Charizard. The others were Blue Oak, Green, and their friend Yellow. The 4 most powerful trainers in the world. And they were all looking at me. Ash POV. I stood on the docks as the 5 of us stared each other down. Brother, I say as he nods to me. Red, you didn't tell me you had a brother, let alone that it was Ash. And Ash, you didn't tell me that your brother was Red. Yellow shouted as she walked over to me and began to slide my hair. She was like that really hyper aunt that always gave you sugar. And whenever she was around, you couldn't help but be really hyper as well. It never came up, Yellow, however that doesn't mean that I like who my brother is. He was never in my life and always away for so long. He never showed up to birthdays, and when I needed him most he wasn't there. I say with a glare towards my brother. The betrayal I felt from my friends is one of the worst feelings I have ever felt. To find out that I saved those people's lives, to find out that I am this world's savior and I saved those people. I say as the anger begins to boil over. I took a deep breath and relaxed. I could feel the anger dissipate, turn to nothing in my sea of emotion, replaced by hope. I am so sorry, Ash, I should have been there, but I have to say, look at how you turned out. 2 girlfriends making it to second place in the Kalos Championship, and becoming champion of the Orange Islands. I nodded and thought about how he was right. I am stronger than I thought I was. They only knew a small amount of my true strength, and that was also a minimum of what I could do. You know, you're right, Red. However, Mom said you had died, so I was adopted by Professor Kukui. He is my brother now. I know it is only for 2 years, but still he is there for me. He also taught me about Alola. What have you taught me? I say, and he smirks. Nothing, that is correct. So I am going to make you a proposition. You become champion of Alola, we meet on the battlefield, and I want to see how powerful you are. I nod and he jumps on his Charizard and flies away. The other 4 nod to me and fly away on their own flying Pokémon, returning the ones that were on the docks. You know, if that was your real brother, that sounded like a challenge. I nodded and smirked. It was a test to see if he would change his ways. He seems to want to change his life a little, if not a little then a lot. I say as she smiles at me, and I walk over to her. Only to be stopped when I felt a small appendage tap the back of my hand. Papa! I hear his voice say as I turn around. Manaphy, what are you doing here? I ask as I get down to his level. I'm here to join you. I nodded and pulled out 3 Cherish Ball and put one on the ground in front of him. He tapped it and the ball pinged without shaking. Welcome back to the family, Manaphy. I say as the ball glows and is transported back to the lab. Lana smiles and walks over to me. I saw Manaphy a couple days ago. He was with Kyogre and helped heal her. They said they were looking for the chosen one, who was also here on the island and was close to the trial site. She says as she hands me a blue orb. I never told anyone about this since then, but I found this orb after Kyogre left. I thought it was important. I push the orb towards her. Take it back to the brooklet and place it where she last was. If Kyogre wants me to have it, then she will bring it to me. However, if you found it, then you keep it. I blush and start to call myself stupid in my head. She never said that she was going to give it to me. It may be special to her, and it may not even be related to Kyogre. I think it is related to Kyogre, so if one day you need it, just ask. I nod and begin to walk back towards the Poke Center, leaving Lana on the docks. When I arrived at the center, I realized I still had to take on the trial on Wella Volcano, so I began to talk to people and even the nurse Joy to see what information I could receive on it. Once I had gathered enough information on the Wella Volcano trial site and how to get there from there, I began to search through my map and Pokémon to gather those I thought would be helpful in the trial. Thank you, Joy, I'll be on my way. I finally say to her as I gather my Pokémon and leave the center. Walking through the Diglett cave, I begin to think back to what Red told me. He is my brother after all, but I need to know that he wants to change and amend for what he did to me. Growing up without a brother was way harder than most people realize. Then my mother betrayed me like that, and it made me realize that I had no one else in Kanto. Verity had left to go back to Sinnoh, and Sorrel was currently in Unova observing the legends of the region. He sends me texts from time to time, however they were always just asking me how far I was in my journey. When I told him that I was in Unova, he had told me that he was sent to Johto for rest and relaxation and to put his notes into a book. As I walked and thought, I felt a strong aura behind me. When I realized that this aura was following me, I started to run. Chosen One, I feel Necrozma behind you. I hear Marshadao say as I walk closer to the entrance. I can feel it to my friend. I say as I walk through the exit and turn the corner, diving behind a bush and pulling out a Pokeball. I crouched down when the person walked out through the cave entryway. I know he traveled this way. Hey Purple, you see where he went? I hear a female voice say as I quietly and sneakily move behind the hedge. No, I don't, Scar, but that feeling he is around here somewhere. I hear a hollow masculine voice say. This was someone I knew from my past. He was on the island that day that I met Mutwo. He was also in the cave when I went to Johto and saw Mutwo once more there. Mutwo, is that Purple your hero? I say telepathically to the psychic Pokemon. I get nothing for a while, but then I hear him. No, they are clones like me, Ash. They were the first human clones. There were about 8 in total, and only one of them failed. He says to me, and I become nervous. Mutwo teleport me to my friends, and then we are talking about this. I say as I feel the familiar energy of the psychic Pokemon, and then I am standing at the mouth of a volcano. We are here, Ash. He says as he appears next to me. Alright Mutwo, what do you mean human clones, and how many are here in Alola, and why are they searching for me? I say as I begin to panic. They are more than likely trying to meet their brother, the only person in the world to have ever survived a cross attack from 2 signature moves of Legendaries. He says as he looks at me and pulls a picture out from his cloak. I made them, using the DNA of the person who made me realize that humans weren't all like the one who had trapped me in that test tube. I raised them just like your mother would. Clone them from your DNA from when you went through the machine, however the only 7 of 8 survived and each with something unique about them. He pointed to the first person. This is codename Purple, the first successful human clone. I gave him the clone Pikachu and he went on to be just like you, however he is missing something, the ability to see, so his sister Grimm helps him see, her eyes the color of blood. That is how she got her name. He says pointing to a girl with blood-red eyes and a ruby-red hooded cloak on. The two were almost inseparable. But of course nothing is perfect, her blood is black and she has nerves of steel literally, she can't feel pain and seems to hate life itself. He says as tears come to his eyes. The next one is Scarlet, named for her birthmark of an upside blue triangle, just like Latia's, and so I named her for this. Her and Azul, named for Latios, had an inseparable bond but held a similar issue, neither one can survive without the other. She can't see and he can't hear, so they use their psychic abilities to help the other. He shows me a set of twins with blue and red cloaks on, and on their wrists are the marks. The next is Gray. He seemed to hold both ideals for a perfect world and the truth that would never come true. He can't ever move because his thoughts are stuck there. This is his malfunction. He can never find love because his perfect world holds no emotion. And his truth always tells him that he needs emotion. He says as he points to a kid holding a Vulpix. Him and that Vulpix were the same. Both locked in a battle of what the world should look like and what it is. Mutwo said as tears began to fall from his eyes. The last 2 are Z and Stars. Both were a little crazy in their own way. Z was a neat freak and always had to have order, while Stars was so young she had no idea what her problem was. She didn't really understand the world, although she was gifted with the ability to understand Pokemon. He says as he actually smiles. They are all my children, always have been, and when the world first saw them, they took them from me and tried to capture me. Arceus saved me, but they were separate and each grew to hate the world. Scarlet and Azul were bullied to the point where they ran away, using their psychic abilities to help the other. When they met up, they started traveling the world. I don't know anything of the other 5, but I met up with Azul about a week before I joined you, and that is what he told me. I nodded my understanding, so he used the DNA of me to make copies of me, so that he had friends. Alright, then we have to assume they want something, and that may be either to help me or hurt me. I jumped when I felt something touch my back. You know you should really keep your guard up at all times. I hear a male voice say behind me. Yeah, and you should really not sneak up on me, Max. This will not be a repeat of last time. I say, drawing a Pokeball. I was so happy that you were dead. I could never learn anything from you, always losing in a league, never using your stronger Pokemon, so I am here to defeat you once more, and then I'm going to kill you. He said as I looked up to the top of the volcano. Meet me at the top, and we shall see who is more powerful. I say and begin to walk up the side of the volcano. As I climb, I run into a Pokemon that looks like a salamander with a bandit's hood. Hey little buddy, I am only going to the top. The Pokemon looked up and nodded and then went back into its den. I smiled and continued to climb. The Pokemon then came back out of the den and started to follow me. Huh, Saladin, are you sure he's the one? Looks like his soul had no fire to it. Not like it once did. I hear a voice say, and I turn and see my friends and Lana standing there. Hey guys, what are you doing here? How don't you have a trial to get to? I ask, and he just smiles and points to the top. It's up there, it's the fire trial, and it's at the top of Wella Volcano. I nodded and turned to the Saladin. You want to come with me, don't you? He nods and I pull out a Pokeball. Welcome to the team. I tap his head and he is SE'd in and the ball shakes. Once, twice, then pings. I grab the Pokeball and replace it on my belt and send Rowlet back home. Rest well, little buddy. I may need you soon. I say as I walk up the mountain more. When I get to the top, Max is returning a Galade to its Pokeball. So I see you teleported yourself up here. I say as I pull out a Pokeball. Yeah, what's it to you? After all, you never did that or even caught a Psychic-type Pokemon for that matter. He says in a snarky tone. At least I had the courage to grow stronger on the way up, but then again I wouldn't expect you to understand. After all, you probably don't even have a Mega Ring. I say as a retort. Whatever, let's just get this over with. What are the rules, weakling? I smirked and looked around the arena and focused on him. No holds barred on Mega Evolution and Pokemon. Z moves are allowed and none of this should matter since you seem to think that you can defeat me. I say and he nods. Full 6-on-6 battle. I win. I get the Pokemon that you stole from me, and that is if you have any, and I will know if you do. I say and he nods again. I would have given them back to you anyway, they are completely useless. He says and I just smirk. If only he knew. Alrighty then, let's begin. Max, you may have first moved. I say as I grab my first Pokeball. Lycanroc seems like a good move. Maybe even Litten, but I really want to see him against my wolf. Alright, weakling, let's see how you stand against me. Max said, drawing his first Pokeball. Sceptile, show him true power. He said as his Pokeball snapped open. Lycanroc, show no mercy. I say, throwing my Pokeball forward. It snapped open and revealed my Halloween wolf Pokemon. Sceptile, start out strong, use Leaf Blade. Max said as I smirked. Lycanroc, use Fire Fang to stop the grass energy. I say as fire dances across Lycanroc's fangs. Sceptile's blades don't even scratch my Pokemon, and eventually Lycanroc is able to get through and burn the lizard Pokemon. Sceptile, quickly use Feint. I smirk as the barrier disappears. Lycanroc, wait till he gets close, then use full-powered Fire Fang. I say as Lycanroc charges the attack and white-hot flames dance across his fangs. Sceptile screams in pain as the fire overtakes its form just from a simple bite. There is a split second as Sceptile falls to the ground. How is this possible? Lycanroc is not even fully evolved. Max says as he returns his fallen Pokemon. You didn't count for me actually being a genius. Sceptile is strong, yes, however, moves such as Leaf Blade and Feint are only powerful when they hit. Lycanroc are also smaller, making them more agile. Oh, and Lycanroc is fully evolved, you little twit. You obviously don't know what you're doing. I say as I return Lycanroc. Choose your next Pokemon. I say as I pull out my next Pokeball. Swellow, let's go. Max yells as he throws the Swallow Pokemon out. Crabrawler, show them the strength that is Alola. I say as I throw the Pokeball forward. The Crab Pokemon appeared and foamed at the mouth. Alright, Crabrawler, I'll make you a deal. You beat this Pokemon in under a minute, I'll let you stay at the lab and train with my other Pokemon. It got a sparkle in its eyes and slammed its fist into the ground. Alright, Swellow, take to the air, use Aerial Ace. Max said as he pointed towards Crabrawler. Crabrawler, use Ice Beam, then follow through with Rock Tomb. I say with a smirk on my face. As Swellow approached, Crabrawler fired his Ice Beam, which froze his wings. Then rocks slammed down onto the Swallow Pokemon. There is a large smoke and dust cloud exploding around the two Pokemon. Swellow, if you can still fight, use an air cutter. Max yells out of desperation. Crabrawler, throw your prey. I say as Swellow is thrown out of the smoke. Swellow is unable to continue. The winner is Crabrawler. The ref says as I return him. Max, Maple, send out the next Pokemon. Max seems to panic, it's like he never expected me to make it this far. Might Tyaina drop him a peg or two? Salandit, show him up. I say as the small salamander-like Pokemon appears. Might Tyaina use Dark Pulse. Max yells as he fires a beam of dark energy at my bee-like Pokemon. Salandit, take the hit and fire a flamethrower. I say to my salamander Pokemon. There is a bright flash of energy that seems to take my Tyaina out in one hit. My Tyaina is unable to continue. The winner is Salandit. The ref says as I return Salandit. That is 3-0 Max, where is that power I know you to have? Don't taunt me. Breloom, take the stage. Max yelled as he threw the Pokeball forward. Trumbeak, let's dance. Trumbeak appeared, he looked at Max and there was a quiet stare down. Breloom, remember when we fought one of these when we first got here, now use Leech Seed. He yells. I smirk, aerial ace to dodge then use Peck to hit him. I say as Trumbeak uses the moves called out. Trumbeak, get ready, we're using it. She nods to me and jumps towards me. Alright, here we go. Cross over my chest, then forward cross arms, crouch down, jump up, flap arms like wings, the bow down and Superman punch. This is for our family, Supersonic Sky Strike. I yell as Z energy surrounds Trumbeak. Trumbeak rushes into the air and disappears into the light of the sun. She then rushes towards Breloom quickly and without fault. This is the power of a Pokemon and trainer with very little of a bond Max. The Z move is the strength of the world, and the stronger the bond between Pokemon and trainer, the stronger the Z move. I say as Breloom falls to the ground with swirls for eyes. Alright, this is the last round. I say as I return Trumbeak. Pikachu, this is it, your chance to prove Ash wrong. Max says as I pull out my last Pokeball. The yellow rat ran out from behind Max and sparked its cheeks. Mewtwo, it is time to end this. What did he call it? Ah yes, farce. I say throw the Pokeball forward. Pikachu, get ready, this will be a little different. Max yells as my clone Pokemon appears. Alright Ash, I am with you. He says as I pull out my Mega Ring. Show the world our true power, my brother in arms. Mewtwo evolves beyond evolution, Mega Evolve. I yell as energy travels down from my ring and his amulet. The energy rays connect and then a pink glow travels around Mewtwo. The orbs shatter and there he was. Mewtwo, why? He kinda looked like Frisia from DBZ and seemed to have that evil smirk to him. Pikachu, use Thunderbolt and try to knock him out now. Max yells out of desperation. Pikachu uses the attack and Mewtwo takes it. It doesn't seem to bother him as he just shakes it off. You call that an attack, rodent? Now I know why the clone is stronger, he is loyal. Also nice try, dumb, but next time give it at least your B game, then I may actually feel it. Mewtwo said to Pikachu as he grabbed him and began to us close combat. He's out of control, stop him. Max yelled as I put my hand up and Mewtwo stopped. You think he is out of control, he is just using instincts, unlike you who relies on someone else's trained Pokemon. You don't even remember some of the combos I trained him to do. I say as I put my hand down and Mewtwo charges an Aura Sphere. Fire now, Mewtwo. I say as he fires the sphere at the rat in front of him who wasn't fast enough to dodge the attack and took a major attack. As the metaphorical dust clears, Pikachu is fainted and unable to continue. Pikachu has fainted. The winner by a landslide is Ash Ketchum of Melee Island. Max fell to his knees as he realized that he didn't know my true power, how each and every one of my Pokemon are trained to the maximum. Even with my weakest team I won against his strongest. Something that wasn't ever heard of in my records. What, you thought that I was losing those tournaments because I was weak, Max? No, I lost on purpose so that I always had a reason to travel the world. Go to new regions, make new friends, and Max, you were one of those friends. It's amazing that I am now standing here, stronger than ever, to take the revenge on the one that attempted to kill me once, and this is my reason to have continued. I have new friends, and the beginnings of a new family, so let this be a warning to the remainder of people with my Pokemon. Come to me and I will defeat you. Now head down the mountain and head to the nearest police station. Turn yourself in and I will know. If you don't. I say as I turn back towards my girls and how. Ash, just one more thing. I hear Max say as he turns back around. He then lunges forward and a utility knife pierces my skin. When someone kills you, stay dead. Max says as he throws my Pokemon down next to me. These are the 6 I stole. Pikachu has decided to stay with me. Enjoy the next 15 minutes of your miserable life. He says as he walks over to Lily and Verity and kisses them both on the lips. Rage fueled my aura as it quickly healed my wounds as I stood back up and grabbed Max. My miserable life was caused by you, so I'm going to end yours. I grabbed him by the throat. Aura began to seep into him from my hand as he began to smoke. You feel that, Max? It's the power of aura, just like at the Tree of Beginning. I am using your own to slowly kill you. Say, a voice that sounds distorted and not my own. Then I felt someone walk over to me and kiss me on the lips. I feel power pass through me, the aura of integrity flows through me. Dark blue aura flared to life around my white and light blue aura. Calm down, Ash, we are here for you. I hear the girl says, her voice sounds familiar but not like Lily or Verity's. Go Lana. I hear Lily yell and a clapping-like sound from Verity's general direction. I drop Max, who scurries away from me as I watch him leave. I then fell to my knees exhausted. I needed to learn to control my aura. But for right now I needed to figure out who kissed me. When my vision returned to normal, I saw Lana's blue hair resting against my chest and heard her sobbing. Lana, you okay? I asked as she looked up at my face. I like you, Ash, and seeing you grab that kid by the throat and see him begin to smoke and die made me scared because I wouldn't have had the chance to tell you I would never see you again. She brought me in and kissed me again. The two girls behind me cheered. But why do you like me? I did nothing for you. I never even gave you a reason to. I say as she just pulls herself closer to me. You did more than you realize. She says as Verity comes over and pulls her off me and hugs her. Welcome to the family. She says in her ear and pulls her over to Lily, who hugs her as well. I look at the three girls and watch as they high-five each other. Lily has seemed to calm down about the harem thing that Lugia told us would happen, and she seemed happy to have more girl power. I smiled as I looked towards the top of the volcano. I nodded to Hao and the two of us entered the area. How POV. That power that Ash just gave off scared Lana. Nothing scared that girl, and I should know because we went to the same school together, and she only had one fear, the dark. If an area was pitch black she would not go in there. Most say it was because she had met Marshadao and he showed his power to her. I think it was because of her dad who had become a drunk. But Ash must have saved her because she walked back to us through Diglett Cave and stopped Ash. Even confessed to him. This was a very different Lana, and all because Ash came into her life. I was so happy for her and so thankful for him. Hey Ash, while we got some time together, I would like to thank you for helping Lana get out of her shell, as well as Lily. He nodded and we continued to walk up the steps to the top of the volcano. At the top was a pedestal where a red Z crystal stood. There was a feeling in the air. Determination filled me and my Pokémon. I got this, Ash. Careful trainer, the totem Pokémon is quite powerful. I hear a person say, but I still walk forward and touch the crystal. I hear the cry of a name and hear the sound of a bone scraping against the ground. Marowak has chosen to face you. I hear the voice behind me say. A giant Alolan Marowak variant appears and stares me down. I smirk and pull out my first Pokémon. Eevee, take the stage. I say as the normal type appears on the ground. It lets off a cute little cry of its name and stares back at the Marowak. I hear Ash step off the field and pull out his Pokédex and begin to switch his team. Eevee, let's show him how we do this. She nods to me and begins to dance. Double team try to confuse him. I say as Eevee begins to move and jump over attacks such as Flame Burst and Shadow Ball. Fake copies of Eevee begin to dance with Eevee, each one following the same movements of her. Eevee, use his confusion and your agility to your advantage. Shadow Ball, rapid fire. I yell out as she follows the command but uses the copies and moves rapidly at different angles. All without getting hit by the attacks from the Marowak. Then the Marowak did something unexpected. It cried out a call for help. There was a brief moment where nothing happened, but then a Salazzle appeared next to Marowak. He let off a cry of his name and faced me. Eevee, it's time to step it up. Double team once more, bigger ring. I say as she begins to move faster and faster. I then pull out my Normalium Z crystal and get into stance. Together, Eevee, here we go. Cross in front of chest, to the side, cross forward, slide face down, palms to the side, below my waist, move one to the other side above my head, make them fist, take the one below and make the arm diagonal under my chest, take the other one and make it diagonal above my on the upper part of my chest and call out the attack. Z double team. I yell out as Eevee moves faster and faster, making it a point to her two opponents that she wasn't afraid. The battle continued well into the night. I was trying to wear out the totem Pokémon so that when I attacked it wouldn't be able to dodge or counter. The Salazzle was not an issue, it was just a strong enemy that kept trying to hit me. One more time Eevee, use Sand Attack to lower their accuracy. Eevee followed the command and blinded the Pokémon. I smiled and she nodded to me, but then a blinding glow spread throughout the sky. Its center point is Eevee. When the glow died before me was not the Eevee that was my friend, now there was my new friend Umbreon. Alright Umbreon, you evolved. She becomes excited and begins to jump around. Alright, here we go, Dark Pulse hit Marowak. I yell as she nods and fires a beam of energy that looks like chains at the Marowak, only for the Salazzle to take the hit instead and faint on contact. Don't let up, fire Shadow Ball rapid fire. She nodded and began to dance around the ghost fire type's attacks. Finally, when the Shadow Ball began to hit the Marowak, the Pokémon fell to his knees with swirls for eyes. It then stood back up and shocked it off, then threw a crystal at me. He then scurried away. Alright Umbreon, we did it. We high-five and jump off the platform. Well done How, and look at that, Marowak gave you the crystal. Kawe the fire captain said to me as I realized it was him who was talking earlier in the battle. Thanks, alright Ash, you're up. He nodded and walked onto the stage. He held a Pokeball tightly in his hands. Been a while since we battled together, my friend, he says as he enlarges the Pokeball and chucks it forward. A Squirtle appears and foams at the mouth. Alright buddy, here we go, he says as a giant Salazzle appears and gurgles out its name. The Squirtle smirks and gets into a battle stance. However, he walks back to Ash and pulls out another Pokeball and hands it to Ash. Buddy, I want to battle with you. The Squirtle shakes his head and points at the Pokeball again. Alright, but you need to rest outside. Squirtle nods and runs over towards Kiawe and myself as I begin to shake in my boots. What was Ash about to bring out that a Pokemon such as the Squirtle was afraid of? For that matter, why was Verity taking some steps back? Rise my dragon, Charizard, take the stage, he says as a giant crimson-red dragon appears. On one of its arms in a black and blue cat's eye stone, it rests within what appears to be a gauntlet. The power that this Charizard radiates scares me. I had never felt such an intense flame before. What was I thinking, that Ash was a new trainer? To have a Goodra took years of training, but this Charizard was something else. The Salazzle smiles and the Marowak from before appears again, seeing the Charizard. The fire ghost type smiles. They both send out a cry and their partner Pokemon appear. Ash POV. Alright buddy, how you feeling? He shrugs his shoulders. Well, they want to see our power together. He nods and taps his stone and I nod. Bond that has been tested time and time again, that stretches from the start of our journey together, reveal our true power. Charizard evolve beyond evolution, Mega Evolve. I yell the last part and a pink energy sphere wraps around Charizard then shatters. In his place is a black and blue Charizard with blue fire spewing from its mouth. The flame on its tail, igniting as a new cooler blue. Charizard use Inferno to knock that Salazzle out. Ash says as I look at him and see that his eye color matches that of the flames of his Charizard. Sure enough, blue flames spew forth from the dragon's mouth and slam into Salazzle and cause it to be pushed back. There is a moment where it stands only to fall. The other three Pokemon begin to fire attacks rapid fire to try and put the dragon down. Charizard, show them our true bond. He nods and then his red eyes change to a blue that matches his own. Flamethrower. Ash yells as a jet of white and blue flames is launched at a Salandit who had joined the battle. Salazzle's partner Pokemon falls to the ground fainted. The other Salazzle also gets hit and faints from the power output of this Charizard. The Marowak looks at the Charizard and rushes forward, firing off blast burns and will-o-wisp to try and hit the Charizard and knock him off his feet. Only then to be slammed in the face by a thunder punch and fall. And that is a checkmate, Ash says as Charizard reverts to his normal form. The Salazzle and Marowak nod and walk forward. The Salazzle hands him a Z-Crystal and the Marowak hands him an egg. Well done, Ash, you have done something only a few have ever done. Given a good battle to the totem Pokemon. I smile as I look at the monstrous Pokemon that stands next to him. To have that much power is incredible. Thanks, Charizard. he says, returning the Pokémon and sending it back to the lab. He walks over to Kiawe and me and we high-five. Alright, let's get back to the girls, hope they are fine, I say as the three of us walk away from the battlefield. As we walk away, I turn around and see a Heatran standing next to what looks like a white stone and tap on Ash's shoulder. Ash, is that Heatran? He turns and nods. I guess he wants to join me now, he says, walking down to the Pokémon, who hands him the white stone, then allows him to tap him on the head with a Cherish Ball. Welcome to the family, you two, he says, and meets us up with us once more. Ash just claimed his first Z-Crystal on Wella Volcano, Mega evolved on instinct to protect the girls who are slowly healing his broken soul, and stood face to face with the traitor who nearly killed him once already. His aura is growing stronger than anyone expected. And something dark is stirring in Alola that even the legendary Harem is warning him about. That's where we leave things for now. If you want to see Ash return for the fight of his life against Team Rocket, against Giovanni himself, and against the ghosts of his old life, Part 2 is up next. So make sure you're subscribed and click through to keep going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in Part 2.